Good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock. I can't believe we're actually starting on time, but it's exciting. This is the August 23rd meeting of the Development Government Relations Subcommittee to the full City Council. With me is Howard Graney, Peter Tallman, Michael Sullivan. In chambers is Terry Murphy, acting mayor, and Linda Vacan. Welcome one and all on the Zoomer. And Todd McGee is here on the Zoomer. We have guests with us. Okay, that's great. If I could get a motion to take one off the table, that would be great.
Motion to take item one off the table.
Motion made and second to remove agenda item one from the table. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Previous meeting minutes. I read them over. They look terrific. I'm going to make a comment when it's my turn, but I just want to see if any other counselors on the committee or elsewhere want to make a comment to this.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Grandy, make sure the microphone's close to you, Howie.
Very copious notes. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. They're good. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Councilor Tallman.
I also read them. Explained everything pretty well. The dialogue was excellent, and it did a great job on the minutes.
Okay. Yeah. They were. That was definitely one of my comments that they were pretty well. Followed the whole meeting, which was great. Just want to scan down to it because I wanted to make two small points. I'll do it from memory. I can't find it. The first small point is if I ever again ask for an MIT study, just tell me to shut up because I tried to read that thing and that was unbelievably brutal. Although I made it through once, but probably retained 4% of it, and so that was one thing. On the other one, relative to the Dean lots, Jeff, I know you sent me the MIT study. Did you send out to everybody the Mr. Parent's kind of schematics of the three lots? You did. So everybody received that. All right. So I want to thank the Ward 2 Councilor, acting mayor, who did take that before. And this was talked about the last meeting, just in case anybody's having trouble following me. Terry took this up before the school board last week. I watched that part of the meeting. It was a very good discussion, and the school board tabled it, and I think they tabled it for good reason because they didn't have the specific dimensions in front of them. But now I believe they do. And it's my hope that they'll take it up again at the next meeting because I think it's a very exciting project with a lot of potential. And that was discussed at the last meeting. Okay.
Could I just add one comment on that, Councilor?
Councilor Murphy.
Yeah, just thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bob Parent will attend the subcommittee meetings to answer any of the engineering type of questions that I was not able to answer. And, I think there were several questions about what we were hoping for, but I think most of the committee, as long as they recognize there's not a need for the school, they're going to go along with it. But I think with the city engineer, and he already told me whenever we have to, he'll be there. So I appreciate all the work he's done, and I appreciate your partnership in this, Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, I appreciate your hard work, as I said. I think all the school board members had very good questions and legitimate concerns, and I think they were addressed. But I think seeing the map and then hearing from Mr. Parent, I think I'm hopeful that'll get them over the finish line. Councilor Tallman.
Well, I'm all set. Councilor LeBron Martinez is here.
Oh, Councilor Brown Martinez is here. Okay, yeah, welcome aboard, Councilor. Okay, I'll get
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, Gladys.
I'll get a motion to receive, if I could.
Motion to receive.
Second?
Motion made and second to receive. On discussion, hearing none. On the motion, all in favor? Aye. Okay, so that's great. I'll get a motion to take number 2 off the table.
Motion to take item number 2 off the table.
Second?
Motion made and second to remove agenda item 2 from the table. All in favor? Aye. Proposals and recommendations for the American Rescue Plan Act. And we have, we have Kate and Alicia from the Community Development Office, and one of the above will put this the Excel spreadsheet. We counselors have our own copy of the spreadsheet before us. I'll defer to the acting mayor if on this one. Terry, did you want to have us kind of walk through it? Because that's generally what we do. We generally just kind of walk right down the line for each page, and but in this case, it would be good to get your perspective on each one. I mean, does that sound like a good plan, Terry? Or?
Yeah, I think walking through certainly makes sense. I would also let the public know that, on Channel 15, I did do, I think, 27 different interviews with proposal applicants. That is on Channel 15 on a regular basis. So if they want more information and, if I can answer any questions, I'll go. As I've tried to do the whole time, I've tried to leave my mind totally without making any commitments one way or the other, and just listen to all the discussions and recommendations. And then my goal, as I told Councilor Graney today, is to try to figure out how to get the maximum bang for the buck.
Right. Yeah. So we don't have any recommendation. We have the recommendation from OCD revised, and the Citizens Advisory Committee. We don't have anything from the mayor, but that's okay. We'll just skip to DGR, and then all we're going to do tonight, just for the public, is all we're going to do is recommend, and it'll go before the full city council, and the full city council will have a chance to amend it on the floor when we meet in the first meeting in September. And we're also joined by Councilor Joe McGivern. Welcome, Joe. Okay, so Alicia, why don't we just start at the start? And first one I have is housing 3.10, and why don't you take it away? Or unless you have some opening remarks, Alicia, unless you want to give to orient us or orient the public on this.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the Citizens Advisory Committee, so we sent a memo out on August 6th outlining where the Citizens Advisory Committee had made their decisions. And they met for nearly 8 hours on July 29th and August 4th to develop their set of recommendations. They focused in on 5 key points, and those include the importance of a holdback of a sum of funds to respond to emerging COVID needs. They were looking at holding back about $506,000. They noted the importance of protecting the federal funds when investments are made in non-municipal buildings and properties. There were some concerns expressed about public facility improvements and ensuring that federal funds would be protected for a period of time, which they will be through covenants, restrictions, or liens placed on properties where we make ARPA investments, very similar to what we do when we make CDBG investments. Number 3, they noted that, and this was a big point of discussion, that some agencies and programs have capacity limits. There's some concern around existing program infrastructure here in the city, but they wanted to balance that against providing opportunities for a variety of nonprofits to participate in the ARPA program and serve the community. So they may have made recommendations different from OCD, but they really were, the CAC was really looking to spread the ARPA across all sectors of our community. Number 4, they were looking, encouraging the city to identify other funding opportunities for larger scale activities like broadband. They talked about the infrastructure bill and hoping that that those funds would trickle down to the city to address items like broadband that were complicated in the ARPA funding. And finally, they worked through and recognized that some proposals were multi-year, and they had a desire to provide sufficient funding to launch these new programs with a 3-year funding commitment. Some of the agencies would be hiring staff, launching new programs, and so there was a concern that if you only fund them for 1 year and then there's no commitment for subsequent years, those agencies may not move forward, because to onboard staff, get staff trained, get the materials necessary, that sort of thing, for just a 1-year commitment it didn't seem feasible. And so the CAC was recommending 3-year commitments. So when we last met with you all, you really didn't want to act until you saw the CAC recommendations. I think, 8 hours of discussion with multiple community partners in the room, it was really good. And I think the CAC should be proud of its work. These are very thoughtful, organized, initial funding recommendations.
Yeah, why don't you tell us the names of the CAC, and they all live in Holyoke, right? So, why don't you
Yes,
tell us why don't you tell us the members who participated in this?
So the members that participated included Kate Kruckemeyer, Nelson Lopez was there for one night, Albert Bowler, Nancy Gentile was available for one night, Patrick Beaudry, and Michael Falsetti.
Well, that's great. We have some new names, and then we have some grizzled veterans on that committee too. So that's great. That's a nice mix of people, and I know I speak on behalf of the full city council, including the president and of course the acting mayor, that we thank them for their invaluable input. Okay, so that being said, shall we start at the top?
Certainly, Kate is in control of the spreadsheet. So would your preference be to have numbers filled in as we go? We've reviewed, I believe we've reviewed the proposals a couple of times now. How would you like this to be handled?
I think just the way we usually do it, right? We'll just add them up as we go and see where we are at the end.
And Kate can give us a total, she can give you a rolling sum at the end of the spreadsheet. You'll be able to see it.
Okay. Council Tallman.
Yeah, quick question. Thanks, Alicia, for explaining everything. This total funding is about $14 million. So this year we're doing 14.9 million. Will that be we doing the same thing next year for the remainder?
Correct.
Okay, so next year.
The city has access to half of the funding this year and half the funding 1 year from July 1st.
Okay, so next year we'll be doing again for the remainder of the funds, just so the public
Correct.
knows that. So and whatever that other money, we don't have the access to that until July, the other 14 million? Or do we have that money and it's like in a bank getting interest, or no?
No, we only have access to the first half.
Okay. Okay, just so the public knows. So we'll be doing the almost 15 million this year and then another.
Next year.
Okay, thank you.
Well, just to be
But
clear,
Councilor, I should
think-
note that, and this was one of the points of discussion with the CAC, is that it may be a case where multiple years of funding are allocated to an activity. And so one of the things that we'll have to balance internally in the office is what tranche or what pool of funds are those future years coming from? For instance, one of the things the CAC was concerned with is wanting to fund a maximum number of projects and activities this first year. And so perhaps we don't set aside subsequent years of funding out of this year's 14 million. So we're going to have to balance that. Once we have final allocations, we'll be able to internally figure out what funding year is appropriate for what activities and what funding level they should get. In the interest of full disclosure, I also should let you know that the city was notified last week that we are receiving additional ARPA funds that are coming to us through the state at a county government level. The details have not been finalized. They are not under consideration tonight, but you will see future additional ARPA funds being made available.
Okay, so
And I wouldn't be-
thank you, Alicia. We're just going to hold that thought for a second. So, Terry, the 506,000. What's your position on that? Since we might as well start at whatever number we're going to start at, right?
506,000 regarding
That sounds like
maintaining a balance.
that sounds like that was a holdback.
Yeah, my first thought is if, and I'm hoping it's not, but if we have another significant COVID crisis, then in reality I would think the federal government would be coming up with more money. And obviously, they've done it consistently, and it seems to be willing to do that. My goal, as much as possible, is to get as much done to have both an immediate impact and things that will have a long-term impact with the total of 13.2 million that we have. But with that said, as we go along and as we get closer and we see what's going on, and if there is a trend, my views may change on that. But I have not committed one way or the other, David.
Okay, so yeah, I appreciate your honesty. So just so we're clear, the acting mayor said 13.2 million. And he's exactly right, because we already drew down 1.7 million for lost revenue replacement for the city, and so that gets from 14.9 to 13.2, and if we held back the $500,000, it would take it to 12.7. But you just heard the acting mayor saying, well, hold on a second, I don't know if I want to do that. Okay, so I just want to have us all be on the same page. Okay, now, Alicia, can we go to the first line?
Certainly.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman,
I heard of Mr. Chairman.
Joe McGivern said Zoom.
Joe, go ahead.
Councilor Greenman.
Councilor McGivern.
thank you, Councilor Bartley and Mr. Mayor. I just would caution that we talked about this at great length about that extra $500,000 being held back, because we know throughout the history of this pandemic, the federal government has changed rules, regs, deadlines, and formulas of how money is spent. And it's just still mind boggles me how short these funds are on actual city services, being able to use for actual city services. And I don't think I'm the only person that thinks this way across this country. And I think that sooner or later, the federal government is going to agree. And if we spend all the money that quickly, Mr. Mayor, we may not have any money when they do change the formula, if they do, to spend on city services. So I thought we were in agreement with that.
Okay, thank you, Councilor McGivern.
I guess we're not in agreement. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Anyone else, any preliminary comments or? No. Councilor Bacon.
I would just like to make one general.
You got to talk in the mic because it's not picking up.
I had it over to the side, sorry.
Yep.
Just in general, I just want to say that I'm in step with Acting Mayor Murphy in thinking about getting the biggest bang for the buck. And there are the immediate needs that we need to address, but to me, the biggest bang for the buck that we get for everyone in the city is in capital expenses and long-term improvements to infrastructure. So that's just my general perspective. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. So, okay, page 1, number 1, Greater Springfield Habitat for Humanity, home preservation, rehab, new owner occupied housing, 430,000. Alicia?
So in this category, the OCD and CAC recommended not funding the Habitat for Home Preservation in lieu of funding an existing home preservation, home rehab project, and that's under One Holyoke. However, we are in desperate need of owner-occupied housing opportunities. Habitat has a great track record. They are currently working in the city, and so that's where those recommendations came from. Again, it's 1 year. You'll see they made a 1-year request. They do have additional funding they requested for future years, but both OCD and the CAC have recommended funding at 430.
Okay, any questions about this one? We'll just go down the line. If you have a question, we'll hit it, but if you don't have a question, okay. So new owner occupied housing, and did Greater Springfield identify the locations for these homes?
Did Habitat identify locations?
Yeah,
So
Greater Springfield Habitat for Humanity.
They do have a couple of identified locations because they're working with the housing authority. So I believe two of those is in the area of Jackson and Chestnut Street. And then they indicated that they would continue to work with the city and hopefully do infill of currently city-owned vacant lots, which would convert those lots to properties that are on the tax roll with single-family owner-occupied housing.
All right, and would anybody in the committee get mad at me if I made another plug, what you just heard? I mean, we'd have a desperate need for housing.
Yeah.
I think we just talked about that at the top of St. Vincent.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that some of us will talk to school board members and hammer that out. There's a need for it. Okay, any other councilors have questions for Councilor Tallman?
Yeah, I just had a quick question, and I noticed, just to jump ahead a little bit, I noticed in one Holyoke CDC, you want to do the rehab, but is there a reason why you didn't want to do the new occupied, maybe split that in half with the greater habitat, since it's a Holyoke agency?
So the reason in splitting it is we wanted to be sure that agencies had capacity to operate both the rehab programs as well as the new owner-occupied housing. Certainly One Holyoke also has a track record of doing owner-occupied housing here in the city, quality housing, getting folks into their first homes. It is my understanding that Mike Moriarty and One Holyoke do currently own lots and are ready to go with development. So certainly there's no sort of overriding concern with One Holyoke. It was more along the lines of, one agency doing one type of project, one agency doing another. But if you all decided that you also wanted to split this up and provide funding for One Holyoke and owner-occupied housing, they would also be ready to go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Terry, you have a take on this?
Well, I know Habitat is part of the funding is to finish one of the homes that they're already building on Jackson Street. They're a little underfunded, and as I understand, they're going to use some of that initial funding to complete. So there's 2 houses now being built with the Jackson Street address, but on the corner of Chestnut. I know their next priority was to go on to Chestnut, which would be opposite the Churchill Homes, and build one there as well. I would like them to also look at Maple and Jackson Street, where we've had a vacant lot there, which is, as people leave the city, it's not an attractive thing. And at one time, it was an apartment building that we took down. That to me is an area that they might be able to go. And regarding One Holyoke, I'm still talking to them as well in terms of how we get the maximum potential new housing units with ownership and in the various neighborhoods. And I know one of the goals is not to just have one house here, one house there, but to have an impact on a street or on a neighborhood. So I'm pretty much constantly in discussion with all of these people trying to figure out how do we do that and how do we get the maximum number of units and still make it affordable and make a difference in each of those neighborhoods.
Okay, Councilor LeBron Martinez and then Councilor McGivern.
Hello? Hi. Just curious, I see the parentheses, the numbers on the Greater Springfield. What does 30 and 11 mean?
The number of units that are proposed in that line item.
Okay. That answers the question. Thank you.
Okay, so just for the public, Councilor Brown Martinez said, what are the parenthetical numbers meaning? And so for Greater Springfield, they say home preservation rehab 30 units, new owner occupied 11 units, One Holyoke CDC, new owner occupied 20 duplexes, and they give some further numbers. Okay, Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Councilor Bartley. Just to be on record, One Holyoke CDC has a multiple decade record of doing these type of duplex home occupied duplexes, and they've been fantastic for the last almost 40 years doing this. And I think we go with the Holyoke, and I have nothing against Greater Springfield Habitat for Humanity. Their work is good. but they're not, I don't believe they're is equipped to produce as many as One Holyoke knows what they can do if they get the funding. So, Mr. Mayor, if you could just keep that under consideration, I think we should go with the known quantity, the known entity as One Holyoke is.
All right, any other questions? Councilor Tallman?
Yeah, can I make a proposal then on this?
Oh, well, I just wanted to get down, I just want to get to revitalize CDC.
Oh, you want to go through them? Okay.
If I could.
Okay, no problem.
If I could, let's get to that one, and we'll get out of this section, and
Okay,
we'll move on to the next section. Is that okay?
no problem.
And just for the committee, so that's what I was kind of looking at. I should have said this, but, you've got various sections here. You got 3.10, 1.7, and I figure if let's just,
Do this all and then make our,
let's just try to get a
Okay.
cluster here and get these
Sounds good.
passed, and then we'll just get through it. Revitalize CDC, looks like you've got, home mod for COVID-19 impacted residents, asthma and aging in place, 100 units. Everybody seems to, they crested 100 OCD revised, and CAC said 100,000. Alicia?
So the difference with this project is that Revitalize CDC is working with Holyoke Medical Center, Holyoke Health Center, Bay State Medical Center, Mercy, in addressing asthma and other respiratory illness triggers in the home. And so this proposal is to assist COVID-19 impacted residents with improvements like air quality, carpeting, that kind of thing within the home. It's unique from the Habitat proposal and the One Holyoke proposal in that it has a medical component to it that the other two do not. So they'll be assisting residents that come with medical referrals for needs. That project, we also can help both owner-occupied and rental unit tenants, as opposed to the other two rehabs, which are strictly owner-occupied. And I should note that Revitalize CDC is already doing this kind of work around asthma, and so they're really looking to ramp up and assist COVID-impacted residents.
Okay.
And then how about if I just keep going down the list? Would that be helpful? And then
I'll tell you what I'll do. That's what I was going to suggest. But let me just chair the meeting, and I'll run it, and then we'll go from there. So if you would, I was going to suggest hit HHA, Appleton Mills, and Wayfinders, and then we'll see why you guys said 0 for those 3. Okay. Thank you.
So the Holyoke Housing Authority is proposing additional units of owner-occupied housing in South Holyoke. Appleton Mill Apartments is requesting $500,000 as the city's commitment to their other public funders for new apartments at 216 Appleton Street. And Wayfinders is proposing a large-scale rental and owner-occupied project at Newton and Cabot. At this point, I'd like, Kate's been in constant contact with all of these applicants. If Kate wants to just briefly go over, the Holyoke Housing Authority has submitted a new budget, and there are some updates on Wayfinders.
Kate?
Sorry, trying to find the unmute. I believe that the budget in your packet, if you received a printed packet tonight, has the updated budget for South Holyoke homes. So that should be clarified there. And Wayfinders, we are in discussions about the targeted lots that they're talking about building on. So there's just some clarification that still needs to happen in those, in that particular proposal. Overall, I think a lot of the discussion that's been going around these 3 is that they're all really worthy and good projects, but maybe need a little more fleshing out and don't need to be rushed through in the first round. But that's just some of the discussion that's been happening around them, that there are still some details and some scale to work out.
Questions for Alicia or Kate? Anybody?
Could I just offer a comment?
Councilor Murphy, Acting Mayor Murphy.
So it's my understanding with the Housing Authority's new amended proposal for South Holyoke that potentially, if that proposal was accepted, there would be houses and the construction would start in, I believe, the spring or summer of '22, which is an accelerated process and would be complementary to the apartment complex, which is scheduled to be started any day now, opposite the Carlos Vega Park. So that's relatively new. I know they've made amendment and the Housing Authority has put more money up front themselves to reduce the cost from ARPA funds. So just be aware of that. I know they're trying, and others are trying to do the same thing, just so you know.
Okay, Appleton Mills or Wayfinders, Terry, did you want to address those?
Appleton Mills is trying to get tax credits and things along that lines. They're looking for a city commitment. I'm not sure I'm looking at 500,000 for any city commitment, and that as of right now. And Wayfinders, I know there's been a change on that because we also have properties that they are looking to build homes on that we are looking as the High Maple Street traffic project would include some off-street parking. So some of their properties that they originally had more than likely would not be part of this process.
Okay.
But I will say Wayfinder has done very good work in Library Commons and it's made an impact so far. So I mean,
Yeah, it
certainly
looks
good
really
partners.
great. I agree with you. And just to either Alicia or to the acting mayor or to Kate, I mean, so we're not trapped in any of these categories, right? You can move funds from anywhere, right? Okay, all right, that's
Correct.
all I need.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Unlike CDBG, where you're capped with your public services and then your housing, public facilities, economic development, the ARPA funds guidance doesn't indicate that you have to allocate a certain percentage to any one of these categories. So you
Okay.
certainly, you could zero fund capital investments and put all in housing. You could zero fund housing and put it all in waterworks projects, however you want to allocate it. We indicated where you see it says capital investments 1.7, those refer to the ARPA eligibility criteria because we needed a way to lay this out first to make sure that projects that were proposed had the preliminary eligibility, and then secondly, so that projects could be compared against other similarly situated projects.
Okay, so here we are at the first section. Does anybody want to make a motion on this?
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Council Sullivan.
Go ahead, Mike.
I would just like to make a comment here, and while I understand the need for more housing in Holyoke, we have a one-time opportunity here, and when I look further down the list, and this is what I'd like to just point out to everybody involved here, you can't, right now, even building new houses, we're going to be putting in propane tanks if we do it right now. Right? We're not even going to be able to hook them up to gas. So we might be better off waiting on this for another year or two. There are other funds that are going to become available. The second point I'd like to make is you can't build new houses, you can't bring in new businesses if you can't hook them up to good water and sewer. And we have huge obstacles on that front with large projects in front of us that I'm already seeing coming up in the next few minutes that have zero funding attributed to them. I completely understand where there might be some other federal funds, might be some infrastructure funds coming and stuff like this. We have loads and loads and loads of aging infrastructure in this city, right, that we'll need those funds for as well. And to continue with the situation we have right now with the basic building blocks, the basic foundation problems we have in this city to do any new developments, it seems to me we've got the one-shot opportunity now, and we ought to be concentrating on that. And the first one for me will be a no vote because it is for two houses and two houses only, where that it's nice, that helps two families, but the infrastructure needs we have help out the entire city. So that's where I'm going to stand, and that's going to be my consistent mantra right through this whole process.
Thank you. Count,
I'm gonna go with Joe's on.
Counselor McGivern?
Thank you, Counselor Bartley. And along the lines of Counselor Sullivan, there's a limit to how much, rental property that we can build. But the new owner occupied units, I think are important in terms of, a limited amount of dollars being funneled that way. But Alicia, I do have one question, because I know how One Hoyoke does it, but how does the Housing Authority and other, Habitat for Humanity, when they find a new owner, how long do they commit that new ownership to that house before they can sell it?
So we use a couple of different models, but typically the buyer is not locked to the house. The house itself is restricted to income eligibility requirements for a period of time. And so, things happen. Families have to move. There's, unintended, episodes in folks' lives. They may not be able to stay. So typically what happens with CDBG or home funds is the restrictions are attached to the property and not to the owner. So the owner isn't necessarily locked in. If the owner needs to leave, in some cases we ask for a payback of some of the funds, or use so those are called recapture provisions, where the money comes back, whatever the public investment was. We can also use resale provisions, where the house cannot be sold to a family unless they meet the income qualifications. So we have a couple of different legal mechanisms to do that.
I appreciate that, Alicia, and that's incoming. But what's to prevent, this is a seller's market, what's to prevent someone who qualifies from buying a home and then in a year or two selling it at a profit?
So first of all, the properties are going to be, they're going to have affordability restrictions on it. So the families that are going to be buying are likely to be below 100% AMI. We can restrict the amount of sale proceeds that they receive back. That was a mechanism I believe was used in the Churchill homes, where the profit is capped, because we certainly don't want properties being flipped like that. We also have requirements, and again, ARPA, we're still working through a lot of this, but in the CDBG and home world, we have restrictions like they have to be a documented first-time home buyer, they have to take a first-time home buyer class. So there's a whole series of steps and restrictions that we put in place, because certainly we don't want properties either, one, being flipped, or two, being used for profiteering. And Habitat has its own screening methodologies. One Hoyoke has their own screening. The Housing Authority certainly has its own screening. Each one of these owner-occupied programs have application procedures, screening mechanisms, and provisions to ensure that those types of items don't happen. I mean, obviously, we want to see families build equity in the house, but we don't want them to sell it and walk away with sale proceeds way above what you would expect.
Well, the climate seems to be right for that to happen. I'm sure everybody has the right intentions, but in a climate like this, that resale can come quick. And I'm not too sure I see the restrictions being enough, but I'll keep it under advisement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, on the First Amendment, I'd like to make for the new owner-occupied housing, I'd like to take $215,000 from Greater Springfield and put it with new owner-occupied housing for One Hoyoke CDC, because they do have a couple lots in the city and they're ready to go with it.
Yeah, I'll second that. Under discussion, anybody? Well, let's get through this and we can have Terry approach it, because otherwise I'm going to put poor Terry on the spot every vote. That's ridiculous. So, all right. So let's. All right, so that's motion made and seconded. Any other amendments on this for anybody? I mean, I'll just make, I like the revitalized CDC and HMC. I think that's a great idea. Seems pretty reasonable. One Holyoke CDC doing some, rehab and neighborhood improvement. We all love that. Greater Springfield Habitat, I think the amendments is a basic cut it in half and put the other half into One Holyoke CDC. It seems fairly reasonable. Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, I have a question through the chair for Alicia. On the revitalized CDC, it's saying that they have a $100,000 agency contribution. However, I don't see anything coming in as an agency contribution. It is all coming in from the EPA, the Beveridge Family Foundation, TD Bank, and Berkshire Bank, which would be other contributions, I would think, with no contribution at all coming from the agency. Am I correct on that?
So agency source can be from other funders. The difference is ARPA funding versus what the agency would bring to the table, and agencies can bring other funding sources to the table. They're a nonprofit, so they're out seeking and fundraising from other areas as well.
Yeah, I get that, but it looks like they've already gotten this money from 4 other agencies, other contributions towards this project. So, in fact, there's nothing coming from them at all. It's all coming from outside agencies.
Are we okay with that, Alicia? Did that make sense, or would?
It does. I mean, they presented their budget. So I guess I don't understand the question. Some of the agencies, they try to leverage other dollars to provide their services.
Mike, you want to clarify the question for her?
Well, my question, I don't know if it's a question or just a statement. The agency itself is making no contribution. All the contributions are coming from outside of the EPA, Beveridge Family Foundation. They're very specific amounts, very specific for this project only. And those total the $100,000. This is in total a $200,000 project. So, I don't feel it's correctly represented to us. This agency, Revitalized CDC, is in fact putting in no money, yet $13,250 is going to go to pay their project manager. That's not going to help anybody's asthma. I don't see, there's money for advertising, accounting, another administrative chunk for $10,000. I just don't see us getting the. I like the program. The fact that it's going to hit 100 houses. That's my only comments on it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other discussion on we only have one amendment, just to cut that in half. I'll take a vote on it. You want to do a roll call, or you want to just do a voice vote?
Voice vote?
Okay, on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that's amendment. So just, Kate, so 215 is now the number for new owner-occupied housing at Greater Springfield Habitat, and One Holyoke CD has the like amount, 215 for new owner-occupied housing. Anybody want to do another amendment on this page? I see a hand up somewhere. Councilor LeBron Martinez.
Yeah, I just got a question on the Wayfinders proposed or request. Whereabouts is that they're interested on developing?
Well,
Can you hear me?
No, I do hear you.
Is it the Newton corner building? I'm trying to find out, is the Newton building corner there?
It's, yeah, it appears to be at the corner of Newton and Cabot, and they're requesting $6.159 million. And it says 15
I'm saying,
owners.
yeah, I know, but can I ask the question again? Is that the building that has an X on it, Alicia, or the building that they're interested, or no?
So they, Wayfinders is very interested in doing a library commons-like project in the neighborhood at Newton and Cabot. And so they don't have site control yet, but they're looking to make a significant neighborhood level investment. And so they are in conversations with property owners about what properties could be acquired and rehabbed for existing property owners, what sort of work that they need. But it is in the neighborhood, it's redoing the neighborhood of Newton and Cabot. Again, making investments, not just on one property here, one property there, but really turning around that entire area and those blocks.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, or can we go
The
on
next page?
to the next page? Let's go on to the next page. And we can always come back to this. I'm not, it's not a dictatorship here, so. Yeah. No, come on, Howie, come on. All right, so it's capital investments, 1.7. Let's see, we've got quite a few things on here that are funded and several more that are not funded. Alicia, Kate, take it away.
Kate, you want to do this one, or you want me to keep going?
Yeah, I can. I'm sorry, I was just trying to get at the full scope of that first project. I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
Just as a point of note, the $4 million in the municipal building improvements, what you see below in orange, at least on mine that I'm sharing, that does encompass two of the other proposals highlighted below. So the library HVAC system and fire stations 3 and 6 minus the generator that has its own line now. So there's been some confusion around that. We are recommending the municipal building improvements as a lump rather than parsing them out into the different individual projects. This would include the City Hall Annex, City Hall, I believe the building that is housing the Volleyball Hall of Fame, the library, the fire stations. So it's a really comprehensive package to solve a lot of the infrastructure needs in the buildings that house governance and house public programming. Alicia, I'll leave.
So one of the things that you'll see is that OCD issued revised recommendations. And this was one area where we turned our initial recommendation onto its head and are recommending funding the municipal buildings with the $4 million. And the reason for that is there are very few other funding opportunities to do municipal buildings and to do them all at once as one comprehensive package. And after discussing this with Sean and the Board of Health and with Mike McManus and Bob Parent, it was very clear that in order for the city departments to keep functioning, whether it's this public health crisis or whatever the next crisis may be, that we all need to be working in safe, secure, healthy buildings. And so that's why we changed our recommendation to include this $4 million. CDBG funds cannot be used for municipal buildings. They can't be used for buildings of general government conduct. And so this felt like a once in a lifetime opportunity to really finally get these buildings up to where they need to be in a comprehensive fashion. And as Kate pointed out, the library and the library HVAC system and fire stations 3 and 6, those departments went ahead and submitted separate proposals, but it turns out that they were already included in the DPW comprehensive municipal buildings proposal. And so that's where one of our key changes in recommendations came from. The OCD office did not recommend funding the Holyoke Health Center. We felt like the health center would have access to other funding, certainly in the healthcare field. We're not recommending funding the War Memorial, and the fire station 3 and 6 are already included in the municipal buildings except for the generator. As we move down the list, the Boys and Girls Club was looking for childcare renovations. We had Providence Ministries. There was some confusion with Providence Ministries. They submitted their proposal, and then they sent us an email and they asked to withdraw, and then they didn't want to withdraw. They wanted to keep the conversation going around the need for homeless shelter, but that's a proposal that really needs to have some of the details flushed out. It may be that they don't do new construction. It may be that they do looking at some of the vacant buildings on Main Street to move some of their locations to. The roof replacement at 297 Main Street, the CAC recommended, after hearing from the director of Enlace, CAC recommended funding it at $100,000. The public library improvements, again, are included up above in municipal buildings. And then we had Homework House looking to do a build out of their programming at $800,000. And then the boathouse improvements to the ramp and programming. And Kate, do you want to just touch on the revised budget on that one?
Yeah, so in your packet this evening, there's a much more detailed budget from the Connecticut River Conservancy and Holyoke Rose. Basically what came up in conversations with them and their presentations is they have 2 applications in on this spreadsheet, and one is designated as programs and one is designated as boat ramp improvements. But when they were speaking to us about it, it turned out that they're much more integrated and not as separate as it appears in this breakdown. So what they did was they took the budgets for both of those projects and they put it into one budget and put it in the timed phases, the chronological phases that the work would ideally be done. So whatever is allocated to them, if anything, would follow that timeline rather than being designated towards either programs or infrastructure improvements, if that makes sense, because it's really one proposal that's intertwined and they can't do things separate in the way that the initial applications kind of led us to believe.
Okay. Okay. We'll recognize Councilor Bacon in a second, but Councilor Grady has his hand up first. Councilor Grady.
Yeah, quickly, Alicia, if you could comment on the Boys and Girls Club Child Care Center renovations. It seems like a worthy project. Certainly the youth of our city deserve more than they've had in the last year not being in school. And we need to advocate for the young men and young women in the community. So I was wondering how that discussion went. I did have a discussion with Mayor Murphy regarding this issue too. So if you could tell me how the discussion in committee went on that particular situation.
So the Boys and Girls Club Child Care Center renovations, the Boys and Girls Club are currently working on a number of COVID-funded projects. And so the thought was that since they've already received some significant funds, that perhaps this proposal be put off for a year while they work on their other activities. They have money for bathroom renovations, for a meal sealer kit. There's a number of projects that they've been working on. So again, in terms of addressing municipal needs, first in this category, that was the thought process with the child care center. And then the roof replacement for Enlace. One of the concerns that the CAC expressed was that the property is not currently owned by Enlace. They are renting it, and they cannot secure a mortgage. They represented to us that they cannot secure a mortgage without having this roof replaced. And so there was concerns about replacing a roof for an owner that wasn't the current applicant. I think those are the kinds of hurdles that we can overcome. OCD didn't recommend it. because again, we're focusing on some of the municipal, high level of municipal needs, and whereas some of these other public facilities are things that can be funded through the CDBG program, like the roof replacement, where we absolutely can't do municipal buildings unless they're a public facility. We can't do municipal buildings with CDBG or other funding sources.
All right, thank you,
The-
Alicia. Alicia,
okay.
hold on a second. Counselor Bacon?
Thank you, and that comment leads perfectly into my question. I have a distant recollection of a budget for the annex, and I can't quote you the number, but I thought it was maybe even greater than the total that we're looking at here for the municipal buildings. So my question is the 4 million enough? I know it's a big number in comparison to the total, but I just have in the back of my mind that the annex alone had some really big needs, but I might be remembering that incorrectly. So if you could help us out, just, do you think that will be enough?
So the $4 million budget for municipal projects was put together as a partnership between the Board of Health and DPW. And it's certainly not a gut rehab of these buildings. It's addressing things that are related to COVID, like air quality. So it's replacing carpets, replacing the roof to ensure there's no leaks, perhaps repointing the brick. Those sorts of items. So I can't speak to the fact of whether or not 4 million is going to do it all, but the budget was developed by the folks in the know who know these buildings best.
And if I
It
can,
was not a budget or a number that Kate and I put together. It was put together by the Board of Health in conjunction with the city engineer and DPW.
and it does sound like it stabilizes the infrastructure relative to the roof and the integrity of the building. That was a big problem, right? That,
Yes, yes. And windows, so it's doing windows, roofs, carpeting, inside air quality. Yeah, I mean, these buildings, the air quality is just really poor in terms of mold and leaks. I honestly expected to come in this morning and find that our office had been flooded, because that's often the case after heavy rain. So,
no, I'm really
but it was
happy.
put together by the folks in the know.
I'm really happy that this kind of money is going into that building that we've been studying for a lot of years now. I just want to make sure we put enough into the municipal buildings. Thanks.
Yeah, just along those lines, Joe, I see your hand up, so just bear with. Along those lines, the assessor's office, is some of this money going to help clean up that office, or where are we with that? Because I don't see in their proposal any specific buildings listed, so that's why I'm a little in the dark on it. So,
Kate, do you have a copy of their spreadsheet handy?
It does cover
Is that something that you can share on the screen?
many municipal buildings.
well,
I have a copy of their application that has the buildings listed. I'll just share it right now. I'm just scrolling to find the relevant spot.
okay. While you're scrolling, I'm going to recognize Councilor McGivern. So just keep scrolling. Councilor McGivern, go ahead.
If I could, to Alicia or Kate, just a quick question. On the Connecticut River Conservation and Holyoke Rose project, I know it's for the boat ramp, but the city still owns that property, correct?
Correct. The city owns it. It's considered a city park. And the proposal is for improvements to the ramp and the dockage and access to the river itself. So those improvements would be municipal improvements.
But you're keeping that separate from the like you put the library and the fire department up with the item number 1.
Correct, because the $4 million municipal buildings proposal came in through DPW and it did include like the library, the fire stations, the annex, City Hall, and Volleyball Hall of Fame building. They did not include parks or outdoor recreation sites in the municipal buildings proposal.
It would be under their umbrella though, correct?
So it would be under the Parks Department with guidance coming from DPW.
But the Parks Department is under the DPW The only thing under parks is recreation.
So the Parks Department would be involved with Holyoke Groves in the recreation programming.
But
And
this is
then,
improvements. This is not, not the actual program.
so it's a combination of both.
Okay, thank you.
Kate, any luck, or are you still scrolling?
Yeah, can you see that on the screen? The municipal facilities include City Hall, Annex Building, DPW, Public Library, and HPD headquarters.
Okay. Okay, and it's so, say that again, Mac?
It also includes the exhibition hall, which is the Volleyball Hall of Fame and Children's Museum building.
Okay, so is it fair to assume that the assessor's office is included, is gonna be tackled within City Hall, Acting Mayor Murphy?
I believe that is true. I think everywhere where there are health concerns in terms of air quality, carpeting, and all those kind of things are all being addressed so that anyone working or visiting is going to have much better air quality in that particular office at that time. Yeah, it's, as I understand it, every room has been, every office, every room has been considered in terms of what the needs are. Carpeting has been one of those things that is definitely air quality in terms of potentially better windows or air conditioning have all been included in this process.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's a winner. Any other comments on this one? My take on the 100,000 for Enlace is a non-starter. I'd rather put that towards municipal. If you don't own a building, I have no interest in giving somebody else, a landlord, a $100,000 leasehold improvement. So, I mean, I don't have anywhere specific to put that unless if somebody wanted to make a suggestion, but I don't. I mean,
Question.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah. Alicia, was Enlace in the process of buying that building, or is that under separate, are they renting there?
So they rent, they're currently tenants and they're in the process of wanting to buy it. And if they can't buy it, they've indicated that they would look to move somewhere else.
Okay, so they have not acquired the building as of yet. There's no purchase and sale agreement or anything that we're aware of.
I can't speak to whether or not there's a purchase and sale. I know they've been in serious communications with a potential lender. They've had an appraisal. I can't say as whether or not there's a purchase and sale tonight, but they are in serious conversation to acquire the building.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Sullivan has the floor.
No, that's answered I'm good.
Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, Councilor Sullivan. Sorry if I cut you off. I did not mean to do that. A couple of things. One, I think it's important that we consider if we removed Enlace from that Main Street corridor between Cabot and Spring, that would leave a major hole in terms of what is on that street right now, in terms of both the community, in terms of what the community gets in terms of service. Let me also say I've met with their board. I've met with representative from their board as well as Medina Lichtenstein. Boy, that's a mouthful. About paying taxes, and they're all in agreement that we would get at least what we're getting now, if not more. So it would not be tax exempt in terms of property taxes. We would still be getting full property taxes. So, and the last part of that is, as I understand it, they are ready to make an offer, but the bank has indicated to them unless you can have that roof repaired, they were not going to make the mortgage available to Enlace. So I think there are three considerations here. It's a solid organization. It has provided to lower wards the residents of the lower wards a constituent service in a number of different areas. and I would certainly encourage consideration. Without that, my gut is we will end up with a vacant a property, and I don't expect the current owner who has agreed to sell, and that would be part of this restriction. If they are doing it, the improvements come with the sale. So all of those protections would be put into it. But I would ask you to give it consideration to both what would happen on Main Street, number one, and the fact that there would be agreements in terms of maintaining property taxes on that parcel. Thank you.
Okay. And then the Steigers parking lot, Terry?
I'm less inclined towards that.
Yeah, oh, somebody have his hand up? Councilor Bar Martinez.
Yes, I'm in favor of what the mayor has proposed, that it comes with the, how do you say, with the package deal that they're trying to purchase in order to get that money. And I agree, they're not the owners, but if it's gonna help them become owners, if they fix the roof, I'm in favor of that. I think that we definitely need Enlace de Familia down in the area.
Thank you. Yeah, I would think I guess I would too if they owned it, but they don't, and now we're threatening to move if we don't get our money, but we don't have any contractual agreement to get a loan or buy the building. So, I mean, that's just a lot of posturing in my opinion. But you know, I would just say that I would say that if you're what you're saying is accurate, that you want to put the money out on the street ASAP, that this would not be a project to do that, because I think you just admitted your own argument. You just defeated your own argument, I should say, because it's all this is total speculation, complete speculation. And now on top of that, we got a threat. Well, if we don't get our money, we're going to leave. So, I mean, it just undercuts the argument that you want to get the money on the street. But that's that's my take. So again, I don't have a spot to put it on this page, but I would say I'm ready to vote for the $4 million, and then and I'm ready to vote for the Connecticut River. So I'll make a motion to approve the municipal building improvements for $4 million and the Connecticut River Conservancy in Holyoke Rose for $128,055.
Second?
Motion made and seconded. Anybody want to make an amendment to that? Anyone on discussion? Hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
So
Gladys, you got to vote. You got to say something,
Yes.
Gladys. Yeah, so you're on the committee.
Okay, yes, I said I voted on it.
Okay, thank you.
Can you
I
hear me?
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so so we got $4 million there, and then the 128 there.
I'd like to make
Council Sullivan.
I'd like to make a proposal that we put $250,000 to the Boys Club Child Care Center renovations.
I'll second that.
Yeah, and thank you. And the reason here is we've also received letters from Congressman Neal, from State Senator Vilas, and Rep. Duffy supporting this project. I think if we put some money in there to get them started, that they would be successful in raising the rest on their own. This program right now has a waiting list of 70 to 80 people, children, right? And even when you think going forward beyond COVID, when we have parents that are trying to work their way out of poverty, that are trying to improve their lives, that are trying to get out of subsidized housing, to have programs like this where they can go to work, where their children are safe, where they're not having to stay at home. These are the kind of things going forward that are long-term sustaining projects. It's not a one-shot deal and COVID goes away, but this is something that can help us in the long term.
Just to Council Sullivan, there's $150,000 on the table on this page. So you're saying $250,000 from somewhere, or is that what you're saying to me? Saying to the body?
Yeah, where's it coming from?
I mean, you don't have, I don't think you have to specify it, but it would be nice if we.
Well, there's 250, I mean, there's 150 on this page. I think we already deleted 50 over on the previous page, right?
No,
No.
no, the previous page was just reallocated, but it stayed intact.
All right. Well, maybe we'll come back to that, but
I mean, I'm thinking hypothetically, you could, just hypothetically, you could say 150 now from this page, and then maybe somewhere down the road, and when we get to the subsequent page, you can buy another 100,000, just to keep it in order,
all right.
would be my only, it's only a suggestion, Mike, but you can do what you,
I'm fine with that.
but Council Tallman.
Yeah, I agree with the Boys and Girls Club. I'm not really too keen about taking the money from the roof for 297 Main Street. The 50,000 for Steigers, that's okay with me to take that out, but I just think the Enlace de Familias is an important agency, and I think, as our Councilor Mayor Murphy stated, that I hate to see that place go vacant, and I don't think they're, if they get the 100,000, I don't think they're saying, well, if we don't get it, we're leaving, but I think it's important to have that replaced, and it's an agency that's really helped a lot of Holyoke citizens, especially in the lower wards.
Well, let me just, if I can, just pose a question to Council Tallman. So if you're saying that, then, and the arguments that get the money in the street right away, and what they're saying is that they don't have any kind of a contract or an agreement to use $100,000, and so, I mean, how do you know when they're gonna use it? I mean, that's just, it's complete, total speculation right now.
I'm betting that they're gonna get the roof and they're gonna get the property. That's my thought.
Okay. At any rate, okay, but the motion made and seconded for $250,000 for the Boys and Girls Club for the child care renovations.
Mr. Chairman.
Counselor Rainey.
Yeah, I think the proposal for the 250,000, where we get it from, I think we need to make up that money. I think Councilor Sullivan made a very good point. This is a long-lasting investment for our youth and for youth employment, and it's a great benefit to the community. So where we get the money from, but I think we should allocate 250,000 to this renovation project. That's only my opinion, and I'd like to get some support for that.
All right.
Because we have, I have community input that is interested in this program as well. Thank you.
Well, okay, let's take a vote on the 250. I mean, we'll just have to figure it out as we go along. We're kind of just walking in the dark here. So on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so 250 for Boys and Girls Club. I'll make a motion to zero out the 50,000 for the Steiger parking lot.
I'll second that.
Second.
Motion made and second, zero the 50,000 for Steiger's parking. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. All right, the 100,000, I mean, here's what I'll do. I mean, it wasn't approved by OCD, or OCD revised. I'll make a motion to approve $50,000 for the roof replacement for 297 Main Street with the aforesaid restrictions mentioned by the acting mayor.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for approval for 50,000. Under discussion. Hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. So 50,000 for. All right. So that kind of gives us like 100,000 left over there somehow. So. All right. Well, we'll have to figure that out. No, I should say it the other way. We're short 150,000.
Just short 100,000. 100,000.
Under 50,000, right?
150, yeah.
150. All right. Well, we're getting there. All right. Next page. Other COVID public health expenses 1.8. Alicia, Kate, take it away.
Before we take it away, we need some clarification back in the capital investments area.
Okay.
So you are opting not to fund the health center
Correct.
parking lot.
Correct.
Now, what about the Station 6 generator that was not covered in the municipal buildings? That's 60,243.
Yeah, I thought that was covered.
Oh,
Oh boy. You know, Alicia, I didn't even see it.
Make a motion to approve the 60,234 for the generator, Station 6.
Second.
Motion made and second to approve the 60,243 for the generator. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Yeah, well, it was right in that gray box. It threw me off.
It's 234, I believe, right?
243.
No, they're,
Oh, do I have a different number on me?
there's two different numbers up there. There's 243 and then 234, so I don't know which one is the right one.
43.
243, it's just a typo, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, mine says 243, so I don't know.
Yeah, the second number was 234, so okay, 243.
Okay.
Okay.
Alicia, you all set to go to the next page?
Well,
hold on a
I
second.
just,
Hold
we're
on a second,
gonna, we need some clarification,
Okay.
in terms of the reality of the Boys and Girls Club. So they indicated in their proposal that they have that they have a soft quote that the work would be $948,690. They're not making any agency contributions. There's no indication here that they're doing fundraiser. It would be entirely funded with ARPA. And so what is the committee's expectation if you're only putting $250 towards this? Guidance around how long you would allow them to try to fundraise.
Fair
No,
point.
no commitment of 250 until they fundraised the rest of it. Because we don't want to have 250
Alicia?
just used for
Alicia?
design and engineering, because then there's no outcome.
Hi,
So-
Alicia. Alicia. Okay, let's take it from the top. We will clarify that, and we will get to that before we adjourn this meeting. Is that fair?
Okay.
I take it that's fair. Okay. All right. What else do we need on this page before we move? Councilor Sullivan wanted to be recognized, I think.
Yep, just
Councilor
a
Sullivan.
very quick comment so everybody understands this. New generator for Station 6 will be a diesel burning generator because gas will not be available. Natural gas will not be available.
So what's your take? I mean, I guess they need it, Mike, right?
Oh, yeah, here we, as we discuss all the infrastructure needs of the city, here's another example.
Okay, Alicia, excuse me. What other clarification do we need on page 2?
Would you like the places where the so I'm trying to give Kate some guidance. This is her first time working through the spreadsheet. So places where the CAC didn't recommend, are you also recommending 0? Or are you looking to come back to those? For instance, the War Memorial?
Oh, good. That's a good point. So I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation of CAC for the War Memorial, the Station 3 and 6, because included, the Providence Ministries, the HPL, HVAC, and air quality improvements, and the homework house build-out for program expansion. I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation. I need a second.
Second.
All right, other discussion? Hearing none. On the motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so all those recommendations, I'm just kind of going through the, so let's just go back to the first page then too, because I didn't take a vote on the first one, so let's just do that as well. I'll make a motion to accept the CAC's recommendation for HHA, Appleton Mills, and Wayfinders, to zero out all 3 of those.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded. On discussion, hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Gladys. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so Alicia, any other clarification that I missed? What?
The revitalized CDC?
Hold on. Well, hold on. I heard the acting mayor. Terry, you got to turn your microphone on.
Yeah, the rental neighborhood improvement program, and the revitalized CDC are, right now you haven't voted on any of those.
Okay, we will, I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation for One Holyoke CDC for rental neighborhood improvement program and the neighborhood improvement program, 200 and 300 respectively.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. On the
Second.
motion, wait, on discussion. Hearing none. On the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion to approve the CAC recommendation for revitalized CDC and HMC for the air quality and carpeting improvements for asthmatics for $100,000.
A second.
Motion made and seconded. On discussion. Seeing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. What else did I miss?
That's it.
Okay,
Good.
page 3. Thank you, Mr. Jeff, for the water. For some reason, Alicia? Kate?
So this was a pretty straightforward category, public health expenses. 4 proposals, turnout gear for firefighters. Across the board, felt like this was a critical need so that there could be decontamination between calls. The resource trailers to respond to COVID-19. That's perhaps a future funding, priority. Although we had a really good interview with Jeff Trask about how those trailers would be deployed. It certainly is a worthy project. And trash cans, both OCD and CAC felt like that if the city wanted trash cans for property owners to wheel out to the street, trash cans, recycling bins, that should be a DPW line item in the standard DPW budget. Because if you're funding it through here, then what's the replacement funds going to be? What's the source of future funding if you're funding it from ARPA? So that was the rationale for those.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you. Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. On the trash can issue, this has been a chronic headache for, I think, every ward councilor on the city council. And at one time, we had temporarily solved the problem by setting up the fund. But with the decline in revenues for the recycling, that mechanism is no longer effective. But I was more looking at this as a capital expense, and those things have a long life. So I'm not thinking, that we would need to have a replacement program in the same way that we do, say, for vehicles for police and DPW. I think we've had ours for, I don't know, maybe 20 years. But anyway, that's just a thought in that regard.
No, it's a good thought.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see what else up there. Okay, just on the turnout gear, there are no. How'd that discussion go for the? Because, a lot of time. This is obviously very important, but there are other grant avenues for turnout gear. I know that to be true. So, what's the take from HFD on this, Alicia?
They identified it as a public health need and submitted for funding.
Yeah, can't deny that. Well, okay.
Are we doing that, just that section?
Yep.
Can I make a motion to approve the turnout gear for firefighters and go along with the recommendations for the CAC for the Board of Health and Department of Public Works? 0 funding.
Second.
Okay, so full amount for
Full amount.
the 338,519. Any other discussion? Nope. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that's approved for the full amount for the turnout gear, and then the other ones 0 for now. Although I would certainly like to hear more from both of those. So very good. Okay, next section.
Okay, the next section, if I could just, Kate, are you saving as you go?
Yes.
Okay. So the next section is for household assistance for rent and mortgage payments, 2.2 on the eligibility categories. We have 3 applicants here, VOC, who is currently running our COVID rental assistance program very successfully. We have Enlace requesting funding, and we have Arise for social justice. The OCD office recommended funding Valley Opportunity Council because this is a challenging program to administer. It needs full-time attention to work with the clients and the landlords who are receiving payments. And we felt like we have policies and procedures as well as the application forms that are working really well with VOC. And so that's why the OCD office recommended funding Valley Opportunity Council. The CAC, on the other hand, felt like they wanted to spread the opportunity to receive rent and mortgage assistance to other agencies. And that's where the funding recommendation from the CAC to Enlace came in. And then Arise for Social Justice, while they want to make inroads in Holyoke, it doesn't seem that they currently have an office. So my recommendation for that would be not to fund them with ARPA funds, but we're going to reach out and hopefully pull them into our community development block grant fold with a smaller grant as a potential startup. And doing some of the work that they do in Springfield and other communities, but doing it here in Holyoke. So that was the rationale for those. The rent and mortgage assistance program is very difficult to administer. The tenants need to produce about 30 pages of documentation that then needs to be verified by the agency that's administering it. They need to work with the landlords. We're ensuring that if we're providing rental assistance for any tenants, that the property that they're living in is current on city taxes, doesn't have any significant outstanding health or code violations. So it's more to a program than just cutting checks. So that was the recommendation there.
All right, any questions for Counselor Sullivan?
So 195,607 for both Valley Opportunity and Enlace to administer a similar program?
That's what the CAC recommended.
Okay, and do we have any figures from them yet? How much they've had to put out so far through the COVID crisis in rental assistance?
Yep, I can get that for you. So, as of, let's see, 100,000, as of today, they have dispersed, it looks like they've dispersed about $100,000 since they've been running the program, which is only 100,000 that's actually hit our books. They've made additional disbursements, but they've been working with additional tenants, but it not until it hits our books do we count it. But they had over 300,000, and I guess it looks like more like they've dispersed about 150,000. So they're almost halfway through their initial COVID money.
Okay, so they're only halfway through their initial COVID money, which means they still have a good reserve, and looking for another 400,000 additional on top of that?
No, what I need to clarify is that the number that I gave you is what has been cleared on our books. They have been continuing to work and make payments on behalf of tenants, but those payment requests, because we operate on a reimbursable basis, those payment requests haven't hit our books yet. So as of today, it's about 150,000 that has cleared our books. They've been working since their last disbursement from this office.
Okay, now
There's a lag in the time from when they work with the tenant and cut a check to the landlord to when it actually hits our books. Because they're not submitting for individual tenants, they're doing batches. So they submit, multiple tenants at one time, just because of the volume of paperwork that gets exchanged back and forth.
No, I get that, but this program has been going on for over a year?
I wouldn't say it's been over a year because it took us several months after the initial award to get the program up and running. We were still getting guidance on how to administer it. So I would say it's probably been operating since, where are we now? We're in August. We probably have been up and operating since maybe January. It's not been since the start of COVID. It took a long time to get this program launched.
Okay. And what I'm saying here is, if that's 9 months, and I get the lag and stuff. But even with the lag, if only 150,000 so far, if the lag accounts for another 50,000, maybe we're at 200,000. There'll be funds available again next year. Do we really need 400,000 for the next 12 months? It seems like an awful high number, given what's in the pipeline or what we've seen so far in the need here.
So I think one of the things that's been a bit of a struggle is that we've had the eviction moratorium in place. And so I feel like tenants haven't felt the pressure yet because the eviction moratorium was, basically holding them status quo. But once the eviction moratorium is gone completely, tenants are going to be scrambling, and they're going to realize that if they don't find a way to pay these arrears, they are going to be on the streets. And so I fully expect that the need will continue to ramp up as time goes by.
Okay, thank you. That answers my questions.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, I hear what you're saying. I think Alicia's making a darn good point right there with that. I would only say that when I look, and maybe it's a typo on here, I have no idea, but when I look at rental and mortgage assistance for VOC, an agency for whom I have tremendous respect, the 195,607 is broken down with 130,000 going to dues and subscriptions. Now that cannot possibly be true, but that's what it says on the ARPA request. So I guess my take on this, and I won't make the motion, but just for your consideration, we have to funnel $150,000 if we're going to do this for Boys and Girls Club. We need to get another $150,000 back there. So just for your consideration, you got 391,214 in this category. You could take $150,000, put it into the Boys and Girls, and you would still leave $241,214 on here to either be split in half between VOC and Enlace, or to have it all go to Enlace, which I guess would probably be my preference. But that's just for your consideration. Okay? So you have some flexibility. And perhaps this would give the mayor, acting mayor, a little food for thought as well. Okay, but at some point I need a motion. And I know Councilor Graney stepped out of the room for a minute. So I don't want to go too fast, but yet we have a few more pages to go. So, anyone with their hands up anywhere? No. Pete, Mike, you have a preference on this?
I just feel that there may be a need there. I don't know if it's that great of an, as Alicia stated, that things are going to start rolling in for this rental mortgage assistance, but it does seem like a high number. I'd feel comfortable taking maybe a little bit from each one, but not the whole 150,000.
Okay, do you want to take like 75,000 from a total of 75,000?
Yeah, total of 70, yeah.
Okay, hold on, Pete. Let me.
If we could do that, maybe. We could make it even 80,000, and that way we could just take 40 from each one.
Okay, so motion.
Why don't we take 45,607 from each one? That'll leave 150,000 for each program. 300,000 in total.
I'll second that. Okay, motion made and seconded to remove from both VOC and Enlace 45,607 and to leave $150,000 in each line item for this. That's the motion on the floor. Under discussion from anybody, hearing none on the motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so a VOC 150, Enlace 150, and a Rise for Social Justice. I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of CAC for 0.
A second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the recommendation for Arise for zero. It looks like they're going to be a good agency. I think we heard what Alicia said about potential CDBG funds, so this is no reflection on them. But they might be something in the future. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay. All right, so that moves, okay, that's another 91,214 that we have left over from this page. All right, let's go to the next page. Because we hit all this, we voted on all these. All right, I'm getting better, Alicia. Okay, job training assistance, page 4. Ooh, what do you got?
So we have a request from Valley Opportunity for job training and placement, specifically to assist people who would be otherwise ineligible for their existing job training and placement program. And, you know, given the other needs, this was not recommended for funding.
Yeah, I remember we had Steve Huntley in here when we met in earlier the month, and I mean, they're doing some really good things with commercial driver's licenses and having some good success. So, you know, perhaps there'd be another opportunity. Is there some other grant funding for them, Alicia, do you think, or CDBG funds? Because they're such a great agency.
I think this would be a great opportunity for CDBG. Yep.
CBG.
All right, I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of CAC for this category.
I'll second.
Under discussion. Hearing none on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Economic Development, 2.9 and 2.11.
So the only proposal in this section is from this office, and it's to administer in the first year 1.5 million in grants to small businesses and support to the hospitality, travel, and tourism industry.
Okay, do you want to expand upon that just so we have a little better
Sure.
sense?
So our small business grant program had been up and running during COVID. We provided funding to small businesses. In this case, we're looking to make a much more significant impact in the community. Depending on the business size and needs, it may be structured as a grant, a loan, or a forgivable loan where a business maybe, if they're able to survive for 5 years, let's say we forgive the loan at the end. Depends on how well capitalized they are to start. The target audience for this are businesses that have been impacted by COVID, that were in existence at the time of the start of the pandemic or underway at the time of the start of the pandemic. Its target audience includes businesses who would not otherwise be able to access traditional forms of capital, either through the Small Business Administration or other federal funding, or even traditional lenders. We tend to work with very small businesses, what we describe as micro enterprises, 5 or fewer employees. We've been supporting businesses that are owned by low and moderate income households, or businesses that have retained jobs held by low and moderate income individuals. In the case of ARPA funds, those parameters aren't quite as strict, but we will be working with businesses that have been impacted by COVID. We have not yet determined a cap for how much each business would be entitled to, but each business submits a detailed application and submittal, undergoes an underwriting analysis, and also is reviewed by a local business community committee to make sure that the funding is appropriate and that the business will hopefully be viable. The flip side of that is the hospitality, travel, and tourism industry. We know that our hospitality, travel, and tourism sites have been hit hard during the pandemic, and so these will be grants to support those industries.
Okay, that's a really good summary. Yeah. 2.9 I don't know, Alicia, I got the same darn cough. I don't know what the heck it is. Maybe we do need a grant for the, improve the air. I know.
The
what poor
air
Tony-
quality in the building.
I know what poor Tony's been complaining about, poor Tony DeLude, my good buddy. All right, well, 1.5 million seems like an awfully high number, and to me, it seems like perhaps some of that could possibly be allocated back to, I don't know, the Boys and Girls Club, perhaps. I mean, I looked on here and I just did a quick rundown. If we took 58,786 from that number, you would then get to add that to the 91,214 that we had left over. You would get to the $150,000 shortfall for the Boys and Girls, just for your consideration. I'm not saying I'm making a motion. And then the other thing, Mike, and I'll recognize you in a second, and then Peter, I'll recognize you right after that. The other thing is that there's, I like the fact that there's, this OCD has thought this out. They got a committee that wants to review it. Certainly, sorry about that. We've heard from.
Pero mira, don't sé si haran's in Puerto Rico.
Gladys, turn your mic off if just
I'm
raise your
sorry,
hand.
I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. Don't worry about it. Believe me. We definitely got to hear from Acting Mayor Murphy on this specific number. But that's all I have to say. Mike, Councilor Sullivan, sorry, go ahead.
I just concur with what you said about being an awful high number to right out of the starting gate. And I would like to see it go to the Boys Club and Girls Club. But also, I'd like to see some monies left still as we work through this total, as we get into some more of the infrastructure items, especially with the water department.
Yeah, I mean, I could even see us making a motion to cut that in half. But I mean, so I would certainly want to. But Pete, you had your hand up. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only concern I have, and I am very much in support of the Boys and Girls Club, their renovations, but as Alicia stated earlier, 250,000. They're looking at 940,000, and I don't think there's any indication that they were going to raise $700,000 by next year. So if we cut from some things, I just don't want to throw money at something that's not going to go anywhere with the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club unless we get it up to the 948,000. Then we have to really cut a lot of money off of some of these different,
Right.
agencies that really could use the funding.
Well, I want to respond to that, but Councilor Graney.
Mr. Chairman, perhaps the Boys Club could modify their proposal on this $948,000 to do a lesser renovation to help with their needs, is what I'm trying to say. And there is some evidence out there that that's a possibility.
Councilor Sullivan, you had your hand up?
Yeah, through the chair to respond to both Councilor Tallman and Councilor Graney. I think the important thing here is, and we go back to what Alicia said earlier, when we circle back to this, we put a time restriction on it with the Boys Club and give them this as a tool to go back to these elected officials, to Congressman Neal, our state senator, our state rep, and put it on them. Here's $250. You've all voiced your wonderful support for this. Now where's the money? We put a time restriction on it, and at that point they either come back, they come back and they have something to offer us, or the $250 becomes available somewhere else and goes back into the fund. It could go to this, it could go to anything else.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. Councilor Murphy? Oh, no, sorry, strike that. Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, just so I can get clear on this, and I understand, and that does make sense. But Alicia, if that does happen and we get a deadline, they can't raise the money, let's say in 6 months, can we take that $250,000 back, and can we utilize that this year in another program, another agency?
So what we would do is we would structure the grant award letter to indicate that the city is awarding them $250, but they don't have access to it until they fully raise for the entire project. And you could give them a timeline. We would put that in the grant conditions. That would be a grant condition.
And and if they did not raise the money by other avenues, then that money would be available to some of these other agencies. We can make another vote, or we could fill that with other agencies during that time?
Yep, I would expect that we'll treat any significant changes to the ARPA funding in the same way that we do CDBG. So we'd come back with a substantial reprogramming.
Okay, thank you.
That's great.
I would also make an alternative suggestion is that if the committee is enthusiastically supporting the Boys and Girls Club childcare renovations, that perhaps instead of holding that 250 now, let them know that you would fund them in the next year, in the next round, and then give them 1 year to fundraise. So they would have 1 year to fundraise, and then the 250 would finish off their fundraising goal next year. That way you're not tying up 250 right now. You're not letting it sit and holding it. And you're giving them that fundraising challenge right off the bat. And they'd have a whole year to do it.
Well, no, that's a good, but who has their hands up first? Councilor Sullivan, sorry.
I like that idea, but we can say one thing, but we don't know who's going to be sitting in our seats a couple of months from now.
Damocles' sword is hovering over all of us. Oh, it's exciting, isn't it? Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Councilor Bartley. Alicia, doesn't that same logic apply to unless they do familiar?
In terms of, well, they're not proposing fundraising, but you're thinking like hold the money until they buy the property?
To buy the building.
So that was one of the so we had two suggestions for them. One was call the codes department and report the deplorable conditions of the building. And they were hesitant to do that. They didn't want to do that piece. And then we suggested buy the building and then we would make the public investments, but they can't get the mortgage because the building's in such poor shape. That's what the hang-up is the bank won't give them, the bank has told them that they will not get a mortgage without having the roof repaired. So it's like this, who's gonna make the first move?
Well, I think if the Boys and Girls Club or any of the proposals here, or they'll have to go out for fundraising or have to go out to get financing, something committed by the city would be leverage for them to do fundraising, as opposed to making them do the fundraising first and then looking back to the city or back to the federal government in this case.
All set, Joe?
There's a lot of ways to look at this, and I just like to be consistent with the way we apply things. I agree with everything Mayor Murphy said about Enlace, but those same arguments apply to Homework House, Providence Ministries, and Boys and Girls Club.
Thank you,
That's it.
Councilman. Okay, nope, thank you, Councilman McGivern, appreciate it. So we probably need, Councilman Murphy, you want to weigh in this one? You're all set? Okay, I don't blame you. Okay, I would,
Can I ask just one quick question?
Councilor Bacon.
I'm just wondering about the 80,000 for Greater Springfield Habitat for Humanity, because it seems like their staffing needs should have been in the proposal for the building.
Well, we're not even there yet, but we're going to get there. That's the next category down.
It's on the same page.
I know, it's just,
Okay.
it's true.
All right.
It's a true statement, it's on the same page, and you have every right to bring it up, but
Okay.
we're not voting on it yet. So,
Just a question.
I'm going to make a motion to approve $1 million for this category. So,
Second.
all right, motion made second, approve $1 million. Under discussion. Does that make sense?
I think that's a big,
Is it too much for cut, Pete? You tell me what you want to do.
I know, I think that's a big cut. I think it's an agency, I think they, talking about, everybody, the tourism industries, the small businesses that have been affected for COVID, I think this is an ideal program for these businesses that have been hit. To take out 1/3 of it, I think is a little bit too high. I would feel comfortable with maybe 1.2, 1,200,000. So you cut out 300,000 to work with.
I'll make a motion to cut $300,000 from this category.
I'll second it.
So motion's amended to cut $300,000 from this category. Any further discussion? Hearing none on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so 1.2 million for that one. Okay, now moving on to aid to nonprofits, 2.10. Alicia?
Okay, I'm gonna start at the bottom and work my way up on this one. I think it's a little easier. So Spark E4All, I think you're all familiar with it. This is to continue their operations to offer small business development programming. So 100,000 would carry them for a year of programming. Both OCD and CAC felt this was important because they provide us with a pipeline of qualified businesses for the small business grants. We've been able to partner with them with a number of their graduates to provide financing to have them grow the program. So that's critical. They are one of the only, if not the only, small business development program here in the city that targets folks who are really starting at the very most basic. They're baking cookies in their kitchen, they're running cleaning businesses out of their homes, that sort of thing. The Greater Springfield Habitat for Humanity staffing capacity, we asked them to separate out their staffing capacity proposal from their housing proposal in the chance that one or both weren't going to be fully funded, that we would be able to adjust accordingly. They may be able to do multiple houses with fewer staff, and so that's why that was called out separately. That's certainly nothing on them. That was something that we asked them to do. They do use volunteer labor, so their labor costs are relatively inexpensive because of the volunteers they get to build the houses. However, they do need to have folks that are overseeing the construction supervisors, as well as folks that are working on the local recruitment. And so that's where we did that partial funding, because we up above partially funded the house. And then New England Farm Workers Council, that proposal was a bit of a mix. And so it's one of those that needs to be fleshed out a little more. There was a question about whether the Latino Chamber was up and operating during COVID. Again, these are COVID dollars. And so that was not recommended for funding by either OCD or CAC. I mean, I want to reiterate, we need to keep tying every one of these back to COVID. Kate has done another eligibility review, and I think you'll see some of that reflected in future as we move down the list. But we need to keep tying back to COVID for these.
Yeah.
Right, so let's just tie the Spark E4All back to CDBG. So they're consistently funded through CDBG, so why are we funding them now through ARPA?
Because the CDBG round will not be available again until July 1st. And we were hoping that if we gave them an additional infusion of ARPA funds, that they would be able to build their capacity out and serve additional small businesses.
Okay, but we can probably expect them to come back for CDBG, true?
I would expect them to come back for CDBG for next year's round. Yep.
Right, so, I mean, I certainly want to support them, but I don't want to support them at that amount. And then as far as Habitat for Humanity, I'm okay. I mean, they're a great organization, so I certainly would like to support them. And then the Latino Chamber, I'd like to see if we could, I mean, I haven't heard from them much lately either, but if there's a group that probably be impacted by COVID, as you said, then it's probably Latino-based businesses. So I think all three are worthy of being funded. But anyway, that's just me.
So,
Any Council Sullivan?
yep. My question for Alicia, as far as Spark goes, the $100,000, it appears 75,000 of that 100 is going to salaries for Spark. You're on mute.
I'm sorry, you broke up. There was some interference and then I couldn't hear you. Could you repeat your question, please?
Yep. So we've got $100,000 for Spark E4All, but in the worksheet it says 75,000 of the ARPA monies are going to support salaries for Spark, not for programs or helping business startups and stuff like that.
So the salaries are to support the staff members who offer the small business development programs.
So we're paying 75,000 to put out 25,000 in programs? You're muted again.
Give me a second, I can flip to their budget so I can speak to it.
Oh, okay, yeah, thank you.
So they are requesting 100,000. Of the 100,000, 75 would go to salaries, 34 to equipment, 43 to advertise, 4,300 to advertising, 2,400 to dues and subscriptions, and 9,000 to contract services when they bring in other guests that they need to pay for. But the program doesn't have, they're not a grant. This isn't a grant issuing program. This is a program where folks provide classes. And so people aren't going to provide those classes for free. And they try to keep the cost very inexpensive or sometimes free for the participants. So that's where the public funds and the public support comes in.
I see that the breakdown shows, well, it still shows the same. $75,000 of this money goes to salaries, right? Which to me is a one-time, one-year deal. It doesn't guarantee anything going forward. 25,000 to the executive director, 25,000 for a program manager, and 25,000 for another program manager. It just doesn't strike me as something that's going to do an awful lot of good, or help an awful lot of small businesses put money and get them started off the ground. I mean, those people are already there and in place, correct?
The small businesses, are you referring to their staff or are you referring to the businesses?
I'm referring to the staff. All this money is going to just staff.
Correct. They're asking for support to pay the salaries of the individuals that provide the classes and the classroom experience of the small business development program. So we have to pay somebody to run it. Somebody has to run it. They're not going to do it for free. It's not a volunteer-run organization. And so the executive director and then the two program managers, they're proposing to pay portions of their salary from these funds. And the benefit to the businesses is that folks that would not normally have access to classes around things like financial management or record keeping or accounting or how to incorporate your business or how to do marketing, advertising for small businesses. They wouldn't have these business folks, and really they're very preliminary, so a lot of them aren't even in business yet. They wouldn't have access to that sort of training otherwise. And so that's why we're looking to support it is, you know, someone who has an idea or someone who's currently baking cookies in their kitchen and wants to grow a business and have a storefront on High Street, they need support and they need to know how to do it. And so that's what this program provides. And the business, this program does not provide grants to businesses. It provides the educational services.
Got it.
Thank you. Councilor Graney.
Yeah,
and I'll get Gladys, you next.
I'm somewhat
Thank
confused,
you.
Alicia. Could you elaborate on that again? If the $75,000 is going to salaries, you're saying that part of those salaries that are going to the project manager and the other two salaries are going to pay people to provide classes? They're taking it out of their salaries to provide classes for people? Is that what you're saying?
So they're off, so part of their budget is $14,900 for what they're describing as contract services. Normally, contract services is a line item that is used to pay other experts to come in and speak. For instance, Spark may hire an attorney to come in and speak for 2 hours around legal issues with business development. They may hire, I'm not putting my finger on other types of speakers, but there's costs associated with providing these educational services, whether we're talking about Spark or other after-school programs. Although folks aren't getting cash, they're not getting a grant, they are being provided with a service, and those services have costs associated with it. And so that's where these come in.
Right, but that does not come from the salaries of the three $25,000 salaries. That comes from the $14,000 to provide the classes, correct?
So the overall ARPA request is for $100,000. Of that $100,000 request, $75,000 of it is for salaries, $3,400 is for equipment, $4,300 is for advertising, $2,400 is for dues and subscriptions, and we'd have to get some more details on what that is. And then contract services is $14,900.
My question is, how many salaries for the $75,000?
The $75,000 pays the share of pays shares of the salaries of 3 individuals. It puts $25,000 towards the executive director, $25,000 towards the E4All program manager, and $25,000 towards the Para Todos program manager, which is the classes that are offered in Spanish.
All right, thank you. Councilor LeBron Martinez.
I'm in support of this program. This is the first time I've ever seen of many, in particular, the Latino community to come forward and considering to open their business. They are their how would you say, the startup of any businesses. That it doesn't necessarily have to be Latino, but because I have seen so much of the Latino community because of this, they have a program that is run in Spanish and English. The Para Todos means y for all. I in very much support. So I think what they're trying to, the request they made it is to offset some of their salaries in order to continue doing the work that they've been doing. I'm quite sure they probably got hit with this COVID where they themselves were not, producing any grants or fundings that can support them going forward. And I'm in favor, and I know the kind of work they do, and I think it's something that we need in this community as we are looking for more tax base and people that can open their small businesses in our town. So it is a great place. They provide a lot of support, financial literacy, like Alicia mentioned. They do financial accounting for them to know how to keep their books and all of that. And I know many other people who've done the workshop for them. So I think it's a great program to support.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Martinez. I agree with Councilor Martinez. I don't want to fund it at $100,000, and I want to go back to that argument that we've heard all along: sustainability. So $25,000 for salary 1, 2, and 3. Where's your sustainability argument there? I don't think it exists. But yet at the same time, I think that you have a, it's really, I think it's a terrific program, it's an innovative program, and you heard what the council just said. So, I can see me supporting half of that amount, and so I'll make that motion for that one. I'll support Spark E for All at $50,000. Motion failed for lack of a second. All right. Anybody else got a motion?
Can I?
I'll make a motion to accept the OCD and the CEA recommendations for both the Greater Springfield Habitat Humanity for 80 and Spark E for All for 100,000.
Now let's do them
I
separate.
second that.
We want to do them separate?
Yeah, can we do it
Okay,
separate?
okay. Okay, I'll make a motion for staffing capacity for oil projects for the Greater Springfield Habitat for Humanity for 80,000. Nothing.
Motion failed for lack of a second. Got another motion, Pete?
I'll cut it in half then. It's Greater Springfield Habitat, since we did cut one home from there, one project, a little bit of their project, for 40,000.
I'll second that.
Second that.
Under discussion. So the motion on the floor is 40,000 for Habitat for Humanity. Hearing no one further discussion on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, 40,000 for that one. Sparky for all.
1.2.
Nefwick. Going once.
I'll make a motion, since we separated out, I'm gonna support the full 100,000 from the CAC and the OCD.
I'll second that.
Motion made in second to support the full amount for $100,000. I'm not going to support it. I'm not going to support that, but I'll do a voice vote because I've already done. So on there any other further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Okay, motion fails.
Good.
Councilman.
And just a question to Alicia. If this is cut, does that mean the program will still run, but just with less money? They might have less staff, less classes. Is that what happens if they don't get their full 100,000?
Correct.
So they may not be able to get as many programs and new businesses started with less money.
Right.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I'm all set.
Yeah, I hear that argument. Except they've been running the whole time with CDBG funds and other funds, and they've been marching right along. And now all of a sudden ARPA's on the way, and we're attempting to make an argument to say that they're not going to keep coasting. I don't buy it. Well, I'll renew my motion for Sparky for All. I'll fund them at $50,000. My motion is to fund half that amount at $50,000.
Second.
Motion made in second, support at $50,000. Under discussion. Hearing none. On the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Ayes have it, $50,000.
No. How did you get to that number? I said no, and I heard Tom and said no.
They got three to two.
Well, so the thing is, I have the gavel, and so I can either call for it or not, and I didn't call for it. But I heard enough votes. I heard enough voices. So that's how that works. Okay, moving west. 3.3. Oh, sorry, we'll strike that. New England Farm Workers. We didn't take a vote on New England Farm Workers. Latino Chamber of Commerce. I'll make a motion to support that at $50,000.
I'll second that.
Oh boy. Motion's made in second to support that for $50,000. This is Latino Chamber of Commerce. Any other discussion? Hearing none. On the motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Oh, unanimous. Look at that. 50,000. There you go. Okay. 3.3. Oh, this is barren. Alicia?
So these two are great programs, but again, CDBG eligible, and not a big, not a significant expansion in service. And one of the things that we were seeing with ARPA funds is an expansion in service. And so that's why they were recommended at zero funding by both OCD and CAC.
Okay. For Homework House, I make a motion to support that with $50,000 of ARPA
second
funds.
that.
Motion made in second to support Homework House for $50,000 under discussion. There's no question in my mind with the advocacy of this organization. $50,000 is stretched like other organizations spend $500,000. This is a legendary, and we've already kind of saved $300,000 from the small business and HCT grants, which by the way, we already spent a lot of COVID money on that already. So, and we compromised with Pete's with 500, 300. So we did compromise on that one. So I don't think we were unreasonable. I know the acting mayor is listening to every word. He's on the edge of his seat. Can't wait to hear more. But I would hope that $50,000 could be supported by this committee. Councilor Graney.
Mr. Chairman, I can't think of a better way to spend $50,000 on the youth of our city for an after-school program, enrichment program that they very well deserve and need. So I enthusiastically support $50,000 for this project.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, and myself also, this is, as far as I'm concerned, a long-term program, an ongoing program, and it's what we really need to help turn the city around.
Oh, boy, yeah, Councilor, sustainability. Okay, that's what we heard, thank you, Jeff. Sustainability, we've been hearing that argument. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Councilor Bartley. To Alicia. Alicia, in the Homework House proposal, a lot of it goes into salaries. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, I believe you are, Counselor.
And then I understand the argument of salaries is, as Homework House, a lot of the service they provide is by the people they hire. But I'm looking at a request to quadruple the director's salary. Is that what I'm seeing?
Let me get there. Let me flip to it. Homework House, total budget, 2.1 million with an ARPA request of a little over 1 million. And then the breakout. So I'm wondering if they're showing you a multi-year. I'm wondering if that's a multi-year. Counselor, are you looking at page 2?
Yes.
Where director of programs goes from current salary to 50 to 256?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for one individual.
I am going to go with that's a multi-year request.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because that's just not, yeah.
If the mayor goes along with the 50,000 proposed by the DGR committee,
We can
how would
confirm
that be
that.
broken down with Homework House? Would you have a say of how they would use it?
So we would approve their budget. So if you had budget requests, we certainly could do that. We would probably do 50,000 in 1 year, just in terms of budgeting and that kind of thing. But if you have particular requests on how that money can be used, we certainly can make that suggestion to the mayor.
I'm just looking at the control factor. I respect what you do. I respect what Mayor Murphy does. When I saw this page 2, it just kind of threw me for a little loop.
So we can confirm that it's a 5-year request. That question was asked, and it's a 5-year request.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Kate.
Okay.
Kate's pitch hitting behind the scenes for me.
Thank you, everybody. Did we vote on that yet? No, we didn't.
Not
vote.
yet.
Okay. We didn't vote on the Homework House, did we? Okay. Any other discussion? Councilman McGivern, you still have your hand up. You all set?
Yeah, I think
He does. He's muted.
All set.
Okay. On the motion to fund after-school academic and enrichment program. I mean, this is something that's a staple of CDBG, staple of Holyoke. I mean, for heaven's sakes. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And we're always talking about how in CDBG we could give more. Well, here's a perfect example. Care Center.
Make a motion to accept the CAC recommendation, 0.
Second?
Motion made second, accept the CAC recommendation. Under discussion, hearing none. On the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Can,
Okay. Gladys? Okay, thank you, Gladys.
Yeah, can we consider at least $50,000 for that program? They really provide a lot of educational support services for teen moms, and they make an impact on the change. You know, they're a changing agent of this community. So to me, 50,000, if we can give 50,000, it would be good.
I'll second that.
Motion made and second to reconsider our vote on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. The motion on the floor is $50,000 made and second for the care center. Where are they based?
Abbott Street.
Building? Like
Yeah.
Abbott and,
I know where they are.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I know where they are.
Yeah.
Okay, Gladys, what your take on this organization is what now?
I mean, I would say 50,000. I know we don't have much, but at least 50,000 would be something to give.
Or why?
Better than nothing. I mean,
No, I mean,
for the
that's very
pregnant
true,
moms.
but just
Schooling,
what
education.
is it you think they're gonna do with 50,000 is my question mark.
What services do they provide, Gladys?
they support young moms through high set. They provide daycare for the child while they're going to school.
Yeah.
They help them transition into college. Many of the young people who have made it even have received after a scholarship to make it to Mount Holyoke College, and today they're very successful young ladies and giving back to our community in their high rise of post-secondary education. So to me, I mean, I know this is a dent to that cost, but I hate to see that we're going to eliminate it completely when they're doing a change agent on that. Been affected a lot. These mothers been affected due to the COVID, where their education has been hindered because a lot of that has been virtually, and it's been tough for many of these young ladies who need in-person support.
That's what I'm talking about. So, I mean, if we're gonna fund $128,000 for a boat ramp,
50, yeah.
I mean, which is great, but I mean, I don't know how many of these the aforementioned mothers are gonna be using the boat ramp. I hope they do, but
I'll move we
They
support
actually-
the care center for
They
They
50,000.
actually do.
Care Center,
I
the
think
Care
we can
Center has a
support
rowing team.
$50,000 for them.
Yep, they actually do. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Council Sullivan.
Well, this could be to Counselor Martinez or to,
Say again?
where is the care center located?
Right up on Cabot Street, 299, I
Oak.
believe, is Cabot Street.
Cabin and Oak.
Okay. And,
They also, out of their facility, they provide a course for, it's the Clementa course, so they utilize that as well to have those who gotten their high set, which is considered the GED in the past, to go through this Clementa course, and it's like a college sort of bound college opportunity, and most of these young ladies, and also is open to the public of women who have not been able to go to college through the care center, through that partnership that they have with the Clementa course. And like I said, many women have even gotten scholarships to go to Mount Holyoke College, which is one of their partners, and others, and they've succeeded, and they're giving back to our community. So for me, anything that gives, is a change agent in our community, I love to support.
If I can, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair?
Well, hold on, Council Sullivan's the floor, so hold on a second.
yeah, I would just like to ask Alicia a quick question. Alicia, can you tell us why the CAC and the OCD didn't recommend funding for it?
For both of these, we didn't recommend funding because they are CDBG eligible activities. We were looking to do larger scale activities, and because I believe that one of the requirements in the ARPA, and I'm looking to Kate to support it here, is a significant expansion of current servicing, and so we weren't sure that we were going to see an expansion of servicing for the two of them, but primarily because they are CDBG eligible activities. I also think for a lot of these agencies, and I could be off base on this, but I think for a lot of these agencies, they're seeing ARPA as a way to ensure financial commitment for a number of years, which certainly nothing wrong with, but where we have so many other needs, and both of these agencies do fairly well with fundraising from outside entities, that we didn't feel like it was an appropriate allocation.
Okay,
But again, they both do really great work. I mean, nobody on this list doesn't do great work already.
Just to clarify, the growth in programming should be tied to COVID as well. So ARP is really about an expanded need tied to COVID. And I think with the care center, as everyone has said, they do wonderful work. This is an existing program they have. They are intending to expand it, but I think that a lot of the conversation had to do with, is that due to COVID or was that a planned expansion before COVID? Really just staying true to the spirit of ARPA. And as Alicia said, not a judgment on the quality of their program, which we all know to be exceptional, myself personally as well. And just compared to some of the other asks that had a more substantial, evidence that COVID had impacted their ability to serve, or that they had a stretched capacity because of COVID.
Mr. Chairman.
okay, thank you.
Councilor Greenie.
Yeah, I think that COVID has impacted everybody in the community and the entire community. And I don't think that $50,000 for a program like this out of a $14 million ARPA funding is too much to ask for a necessary program or a good program like this that COVID has affected equally to everybody in the community. Thank you.
Okay, motion before us is $50,000 for the, so we approved the motion and reconsider, so we did that. And now we have a motion made and seconded to approve a allocation of $50,000 to Care Center. Hearing no further discussion on the motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
We green light that one, so we keep moving west. Okay, so, all right, so that's all. I think those are good. I think those are very good votes, and I'll leave it there. Okay, next page. Health Services 3.4. Did we lose somebody? Alicia?
I'm here. Are you ready
Okay,
for me?
We're moving west, and we're on page 5, Health Services 3.4.
So this is a cluster of social, emotional, and mental health services. We have applications from River Valley, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Girls Inc., the Holyoke YM, and ROCA. OCD, as well as CAC, felt like this was an area that needed significant funding to ensure that the mental health and emotional health of the young people in the community was taken care of in light of COVID. And so we endorsed funding these programs, except for Big Brothers Big Sisters, and that's because they have a current allocation of CDBG that they haven't used yet. But for these other folks, we felt like ensuring the mental health capacity and wellness of our young people was just critical. And I think it speaks to themselves, each one of these proposals. You'll see that we're actually recommending, in most cases, either full support or their multi-year requests so that they can get up and operational, ensure that the funding will be there for the next few years as they support young people in the community. And I think you'd agree that in the past, it's rare that CDBG funding that we recommend fully funding or that we recommend funding all services in one grouping, but this is just so critical, and there's such a shortage of emotional and mental health services here in the community for the needs that we have. And so we felt like this was an opportunity to hit a cross section of young children, young adults, hit them in the school system if we can, get them through the Girls Inc. if they're there, that we would be able to reach as many folks as possible in as many different venues.
Counselor Bacon, sorry about that.
Just looking at the mix of providers, I just wanted to be sure that there will be adequate balance and access for both boys and girls. Do you think between the various providers that can be achieved?
I do. The only one that would be limited on gender would be Girls Inc. Because they do serve only young girls, but otherwise there would be an equal balance.
And so you feel that there'd be access available for any child that would need it? Through
Absolutely.
this robust funding?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
What, can I ask the question, do you have the age range that they're providing services to? Because I know that River Valley is in the school system for more the older youth. So what is the other age range? What's the age starting age of services?
I can pull that for you from each one of the proposals.
Any comments from the committee while we're looking this proposal up? This basically, these four come out to about $1.25 million, which is just around 10% of the allocation. And I say 10% because we took 1.7 million out. So that's 10% of the remaining allocation for social, emotional, and mental health services. Yes, Howie.
So River Valley.
What is it, Howie?
River Valley is going to start in the Peck Middle School. They're training trainers, so they're going to start in Peck, and then it's going to ripple out to other schools. Girls Inc. is next. 611. Thank you for bearing with me. There's over 800 pages of application here. So Girls Inc. is, they're going to serve 1,500 girls.
If you don't mind me jumping in, it's 5 to 18. Their age is 5 to 18.
Perfect. No, please jump in, please. The Y, I believe the Y is younger children.
The Y express 2 to 13.
Okay. And then Roca is teens.
Okay. Yeah, I know Roca. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anybody want to make a comment or motion? Councilor Tallman.
Just a question to Alicia. You said these are multi-years, so, and that's not just for 1 year, it could be up to 2 or 3 years for these programs?
Yes, so you'll see that the different funding levels are reflective of the, so for instance, with River Valley, they had requested 153 in the first year and 529 overall, and the recommendation has been to fund them at 529 so that they can get that staff hired and know that the grant is going to be in place for the duration. Same thing with Girls Inc. The Y we're recommending fully funding, and the same with, so Roca, Kate, help me with Roca on why we didn't do the 900.
So the first 3 involve hiring clinicians, licensed clinicians to embed within institutions. So the first year is really going to be taken up with hiring and training and putting them in place, whereas Roca is an expansion of their existing program. So year-to-year funding makes more sense as opposed to the other 3. So it's slightly different. So the Roca is a 1 year. The others from our office are fully funded, and from CAC are reflect a 3-year funding.
So Alicia, just real quick, and so your office stated like 693 for Girls Inc., but the CAC goes down to 416. So CAC is not fully funding those couple of years then, right?
Correct. They were looking at a 3-year funding cycle.
Right, so that would be less. They could come back next year. I mean, I'm just saying and we might say 200,000 instead of 416, but there's a big difference on about 3 of these from your revised number and the CAC. Seems like they
So
cut quite a bit.
We were looking to fund it for 5 years, and the CAC felt like they wanted to fund them for 3.
Okay. Thank you.
Counselor Sullivan?
Yeah. So, on the Rise to Resiliency training, right? This is what the training teachers at the Holyoke Public Schools, that River Valley Counseling will be training teachers at the schools.
Teachers and other school employees to be aware of the impacts of trauma on children and be able to intervene before behaviors either get out of control or be able to recognize trauma-based behaviors and make referrals for additional services.
Yeah, I'm just curious, with a school with a $108 million budget, a lot of the teachers having master's degrees and advanced degrees, and the training we already provide to our teachers, why we're now going to an outside agency to start doing this, how number one, how sustainable is it, and how have we survived this long without it? It just staggers me that out of a $108 million budget, this training, this service isn't already provided to our educators. Anyone? Okay.
Yeah, well, basically, doesn't the school system already have trained personnel to handle this? They hire personnel to handle this type of situation. The school system has counselors, they have special ed teachers, they have different counseling of all different types of mental health issues. So I understand what Counselor Sullivan is saying. Why are we going to an outside agency to provide training for people who already are supposed to have that training?
And if I might add further on that, $92,000 of it goes to dues and subscriptions. It just doesn't strike me as a good use right now of these funds at all.
Well, I'm going to make one motion, and then we can take it from there because we got to keep moving on this. I'm going to make a motion to support the Greater Holyoke YMCA, the CAC's recommendation of $219,939.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to support the YMCA mental health support for Holyoke youth ages 2 to 13, $219,939. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right. So we got the $219,939 is there right now. I'm going to make a second motion to support the OCD and CAC's recommendation for Holyoke mentoring Big Brothers Big Sisters based on the aforementioned comments to put them at 0 for this year.
Second that.
Motion made and seconded. Under discussion, hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anybody else got a motion?
I'd make a motion for Roca Inc. To fully fund the $300,000 from the OCD and the CAC.
Motion fails for lack of a second. Any other motions?
I would like to fund that at 200,000.
I'll second that.
So the motion by Gladys, seconded by Pete. Sorry, use your first names. I know you so well. Sorry. LeBron Martinez and Tallman. Motion made and seconded to support Roca Inc. at $200,000 as opposed to the $300,000. On discussion. Hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nope.
Okay, that one carries by a voice vote for 200,000. I'll make a motion for Girls Inc. I don't want to support the full thing, but I want to support it similar to what the others are. So I'll support Girls Inc. For $250,000 for Together We Rise Mental Health for Girls.
I second that.
Motion's made and seconded. This might not get too far, but we'll see. We'll see. Under discussion. Hearing none on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, opposed? Oh, it passed. Okay, there you go. Thank you, Gladys. You're the best. Okay. River Valley Counseling Center. Does somebody want to step up on this one?
Make a motion to zero that.
Second. Motion made and second to zero out River Valley Counseling Center. On the motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Ayes have it. So that's a zero. Okay. Next, services to disproportionately impacted childcare 3.6. Alicia? Alicia?
We lose it.
Sorry about that. So this is a proposal for childcare slots at the Boys and Girls Club. The CAC recommended 120,000.
I'm going to make a motion to recommend that we approve the CAC's, we recommend to the full city council to approve the CAC's recommendation of 120.
A second.
Second that.
Okay,
Anybody?
under discussion. Hearing none on the
Could I-
motion, all in
could I-
favor?
could I just-
Time on for sports. Counselor Murphy.
Yeah, just one question, because if I'm not mistaken, then what they were requesting for the first year was 40,000. So are we just basically saying that we're making a 3-year appropriation? Is that what the CAC said?
Alicia, can you answer Acting Mayor Murphy's comment? Question.
Yes, it was 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
2 years, okay.
Yeah, this sounds like a winner to me. Counselor Sullivan, sorry.
I mean, just so everybody's clear, this one really is a winner. This summer camp program is for homeless and DCF involved youth. So when we talk about our most impacted youth and the ones we really have to get to, this is it right here. So.
All right, good point, Mike. Okay, on the motion, any further discussion? Hearing none on the motion to put 120 in there, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. 120. Okay, Alicia, services to proportionally impacted healthy environment, 3.9.
So this is the programming portion of the Holyoke Rose. This was the programming portion of the Holyoke Rose proposal. Kate, what's the revised figure that they provided when they rolled the two of them together? Because what we would recommend doing here is taking what you've already allocated and adding in the additional funds to come to their total budget so that their new budget is met.
I just need 1 second.
Can I,
So we've got two budgets for
460.
separate line items here. Okay, let's see what we got here. First one is
128.
128,055.
So this is where originally it was separated in infrastructure and programming, and they sent that revised budget that's in your packet from today that just combined them into a chronological plan. So it's the same total, but it's just a question of the order of activities. They no longer want it split out between programming and improvements. They would rather kind of follow the timeline. So the amount the total amount between the two asks will be applied to the plan as it appears in that chronological budget, if that makes sense.
No, it doesn't. So
I got it.
I don't got it.
Let me
So,
see okay, let me share this document.
It's got 466 in total. I got 238 and I got 243.
So between the two applications that they submitted, the total is $466,888. And that is consistent with the two applications that are in place. But once we had recommended funding for just infrastructure, just improvements to the ramp, they came into meetings, public presentation and meeting with the mayor, and said that this is actually a better way to allocate the money than dividing it up by programs versus improvements. So that lump sum of the two applications combined is represented in this project plan for all of the improvements that they want to make, which includes equipment for programming and improvements to the staircase, the dock. I know there's buoys, there's safety measures. And so some of it was like, if we do this one thing, it's just the order in which they'd like to do the work.
okay, hold on. I'm going to recognize Councilor Brown Martinez first, Councilor Graney second, Councilor McGivern third. Councilor Brown Martinez.
Yeah, let me explain that I'm very passionate about this particular program. This particular program, I brought youth while I was running the summer youth program in the city, and our own inner city kids didn't know about this rowing program, and now they've been introduced to it, and it's been the outlet for a lot of health and wellness for many of our young people. With the new job that I have in Springfield, I recently brought a group of youth from Springfield, inner city youth as well, who did not know that you can do kayaking by, through programs like such. And I think, it was a moment of many of these youth been inside in virtual settings that needed that outlet of being able to release some of that situation, and also dealing with youth with mental health. And this was an eye-opening for many of them. And they said they never knew this was available. They've now been utilizing it. And I think Ms. Moore has done a great job with this particular program, and always struggling to maintain the resources in order to keep this place going. And I know it's a city-owned facility, but if you really go down there, the dock needs some work, and there's another area that needs like stairways and stuff. But just saying that this is a great place to have for what we're faced with COVID, for people to go and, mentally kind of let go.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Councilor Graney.
Thank you.
Yeah, quickly, by combining the infrastructure and the programs, it doesn't make sense to me. The infrastructure would probably be year-round. That's solid. That's very understandable. But are the programs offered year-round to the youth, or is that seasonal?
There's year-round programming there. When it's not possible to row on the river, they have rowing programs inside the building.
Cool.
Okay.
Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Councilor Bartley. All in favor of the project. I do support the Hoyok Rolls and the wonderful stuff that they've done. I just want to make sure, I said this earlier, that we're on the same page though. The city, this is a municipally owned property, the building, the lot, the parking lot. And I know the boat ramp, and I'm sure it has to answer to some state agency, but this needs to come under the infrastructure improvements need to come under the DPW umbrella. The DPW controls all municipal property unless otherwise designated. So I'm all in favor of it, and the initiative of looking for the money is great, but please make sure the DPW comes into the picture.
Okay, thank you. Just Alicia, why did OCD not recommend?
So the OCD recommendations came out before Kate had a more in-depth conversation with the parties that were involved in this, and before the interviews were done. And so as a result of the interviews and trying to work with them and kind of flush it out, that's where the revised budget came from. So if OCD had another go around at this, we would recommend funding at 466,888 so that we know that the program can move forward in its entirety. And we can work with DPW to ensure that there's DPW oversight. We probably would actually do the ARPA agreement with DPW if they're willing, as opposed to having the outside entity. We could work to make sure that happens.
All right, I'll make a motion that we recommend to the full city council the CAC's recommendation at 243,102.
Second that.
Motion made and seconded to approve the recommendation on discussion. Hearing none on the motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. 243,102. Turn the page. Page 6. Well, there's nothing there.
Not much.
So, Alicia, why don't we kind of do a little bundle here for 314, 316, 4154, okay? So we can just run down this whole page, please.
Okay, so Providence Ministries Community Annex, we've talked about that earlier. That needs some additional work to figure out what that shelter and servicing would look like, and so there's no need to allocate funding for staff for a facility that not yet exists. Alianza Domestic Violence Services, they're currently funded with both CDBG and CDBG COVID funds, and so we weren't recommending funding at this point. Police Department, shot spotters and tasers was not recommended for funding at this point. Valley Opportunity Council, that's emergency stabilization for domestic violence. Shelter beds, again, CDBG eligible activity. Premium pay for public sector employees. The police department is calling for $1,000 per Holyoke Police Department employee. We weren't recommended funding for that at this point. There are other public sector employees who worked during COVID, and perhaps in a future funding round, if the city wanted to move in a premium pay direction, then it would be comprehensive for all of the public employees that worked, Board of Health, fire, police, ambulance, that sort of thing. Do you want me to go into 5.4 is CSO?
Please.
And you'll see that we did do a revised, after discussions with Mike McManus, we did some revised recommendations, and we're now at $2 million for the overall sewer system rehab.
Okay. I want to ask a question about the shot spotters. Was that broke? Because we have funded tasers now at least twice in my career. So I'm in no mood to fund that. But we've never funded the shot spotters. And I remember Councilor Soto brought this up on an order in 2012. And we had a committee meeting on this, as a matter of fact, in public safety when I was on that committee in 2012. And now we've had multiple shootings throughout the city. I didn't realize until we had the murder in the city that last year in 2020 Holyoke had 6 murders, which I don't remember that being reported. Somehow that one slipped by my desk. So we're obviously having a issue with violence, and if this is a tool that could, I'm not really keen on giving the police a $1,000 bonus each, but I would be interested in knowing what the shot spotter budget is. Do you know what that specifically is, Alicia? I can't see it on I scrolled through this 20 times. I can't find it.
Shot spotter budget, I believe, was one of the ones that was pending. I was just flipping through. I think it's one of the ones that was pending. But the concern with the shot spotters, and we need to work with the police department for more information on this, is that the shot spotters, this would be the initial investment is for basically what amounts to a lease of equipment. And so one of the questions that we had when we met with the police department in our department head meeting was, so how are these going to be funded after they're initially installed? Because then there would be, Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, it's getting late for me, but there would be a payment required year after year after year, and it wasn't clear how that payment would be made.
It's
the
the
other-
$99,000 per year rental agreement with tech support and management.
There we go.
What's that
So
number,
we don't,
Kate? Kate, just repeat the number, please.
Sorry, my mute was stuck. It's $99,000 per year.
99,000 per year, okay. All right, and, well, I mean, that doesn't sound like off the wall. I mean, when you think about what we're spending on tech support for the police for Wally Computer, that sounds like a bargain. But at any rate,
so it's not, it wasn't an outrageous amount of money, but one of the things with ARPA is we need to make sure that we're making investments, that it's a longer term investment and we're not going to the trouble of spending federal dollars to install something that may not be in existence after that first year. So we were going to work with the police department to see if they could identify other sources of funding to ensure long-term viability of the shot spotters in the city.
Councilor Bacon, yep.
Just a quick question. Is this something that could be a capital expense, or is it only available by lease?
I believe we asked, and I believe the answer was that it's a leased equipment. And the reason for that is because the monitoring of it is done by the shot spotter company. It doesn't have to be monitored by the actual police department.
Okay.
So they have like a monitoring plan. Kate, am I remembering the right one?
Yeah, that's my understanding. It's a service as much as equipment that you're paying for per year.
Sort of like a community lifeline, only it's for shots fired.
Yeah, like a subscription sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Von Martinez?
I'm sorry, guys, I lost you in the middle. My computer went dead. I'm really interested in, I'm sorry, and I lost what happened with the shot spotter. What was that? That I know you said something, David, about why not the shot spotters?
Okay,
You were saying
so-
something.
Right, we were just trying to figure out the budget allocation between tasers and shot spotter, and I said that we've funded tasers at least twice since I've been on this board, and we've never funded shot spotters, and to the best of our knowledge, the shot spotters is a lease type arrangement that costs $99,000 per year, and the question becomes whether or not that is sustainable beyond year one. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
you.
that's good.
Mr. Chairman.
Counselor Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of points. Both the Hoyle Fire Department and the Action Ambulance Service both indicated that from a public safety and a quick response, that they both thought the shot spotter made sense. A lot of times they get calls with people saying that there was shots fired, and they end up being 3 or 4 city blocks away from where the actual shooting took place, and they actually are kind of searching for where the person might be a victim. And in other cases where the police have actually come across the gunshots several blocks away from where the call came. So I know both fire chief and the Action Ambulance Service both indicated that if we did this, it would provide them with an opportunity to arrive quicker in those kind of cases. So just a thought. One other thing is that came up. Well, we may have invested in tasers. We do not have tasers so that every officer on the street has a taser every day, every shift. So that is somewhat of a concern. So.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Graney?
Just quickly on the shot spotter issue, do we have feedback from other communities? Does it work anywhere? Springfield, Chicopee, anywhere? And what's the feedback on it?
Good feedback in Springfield, that's all I can tell you.
Yeah, that's what I've heard as well. That Springfield is pretty well satisfied with it. And it does get them to the scene of the shooting much quicker.
Okay. Well, let's just kind of roll through these. I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of OCD and CAC for Providence Ministries at the top of the page.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and second to approve that. Under discussion, hearing none on the motion, all in favor? Aye. I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation from CAC and OCD relative to Alianza Services.
Second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve that. Under discussion, hearing none on the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have to, everybody's got to vote now, so let's not, so we're getting there. Okay, we're gonna skip one here. I'm gonna make a motion under 4.1, Police Department, 1,000 per employee, to accept the OCD and CAC recommendation to zero it out.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. On discussion, hearing none on the motion, all in favor? Aye. Okay, now, this is where it gets a little interesting. Clean water combined sewer overflow. Where's Councilor McGivern when we need him? Because he's been talking about this since I've been on this board. All right, so, Alicia, the recommendation is what now? $2 million for what now?
This is, so the recommendation here, after conversations with Bob Parent and Mike McManus, is $2 million in this first go-around for sewer system rehab.
All right, Councilor Murphy, you're okay with that?
I've spoken with the city engineer, and the view is that this is actually more of both a potential hazard and a potentially much greater expense to the city if we don't deal with it. So their recommendation was that this would take precedence over the Jackson Sewer bond payment.
Okay.
And if I might, one more point, they
Please.
indicated that when we have a collapse, and that's what they're really worried about, our potential expense goes 100,000 plus for each one of those, and they are the internal parts, the older parts of the city are in serious need of these kind of things. We did fund 100,000 to do inspections with CDBG this year and 100,000 to start doing some of the relining, but they have indicated that this could potentially be a $10 to $15 million type of total expense as we go along. So they thought this would get it started and to do some significant inspections, but also some significant repairs to avoid sinkhole collapses.
Councilor Green, you have
Councilor Murphy just answered my
Okay.
question.
Councilor Sloan, you're all set?
set.
Okay, we'll make a motion to, Councilor Bacon, I'm sorry, go ahead.
On the topic, I would just like to ask the committee to give consideration to accepting that funding recommendation, but also whatever monies are left over from what you have cut on the previous pages, if you would consider using them for the Jackson also. I mean, I
Okay.
think we need to try to do as much as we can. Thank you for your
Thank-
consideration.
Yeah, that's a good comment. Count?
Yeah, maybe, go ahead, Alicia, I think you're gonna answer the question
If-
ahead of my asking it.
If I may, Mayor Murphy, is it our understanding that the Jackson Street is one of those projects that's already funded?
Correct.
And so this doesn't make a difference? Okay. Because that was
This
one of the
would-
considerations that both the Waterworks and DPW looked at, was whether or not the projects were already funded and would they make an impact to the rate holders. And Jackson Street is already fully funded. So just to make sure the committee knows that.
So,
Councilor Bacon?
well, just for clarification, so it's funded through a bond, and we sought clarification as to whether this funding could be used to reduce that cost, and we were understanding that the answer was yes.
If I can.
Councilor Murphy?
Yeah, I still haven't got it. I know we've asked the question. I haven't ever seen it as a definitive yes. There was when we first looked at it, the question was, was asked, and we were told that potentially might not be. Then we've got further clarification saying that it might be. So I have not, to my knowledge, and maybe Alicia has seen something or Kate has seen something different than what I've seen.
Okay.
There are continuing to be amendments to how it's being interpreted, but that is one of the thoughts that originally came, that if it's already something that has been working on and funded, whether it be bond or previously paid, that it may or may not be eligible. I have not seen anything to clearly say that it could.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Sullivan?
Yeah, I think that's where I was going with this, Alicia. I believe that it was, that I read it pretty clearly, that once a project had already begun, it wasn't eligible any longer. Is that a correct interpretation there?
So the guidance is a little fuzzy right now in that. It seems clear that you can't use the ARPA funds, and I'm going to speak carefully here because I want to get this right, but you can't use the ARPA funds to pay the financing costs of a project that's already underway. But if a project's underway and there's construction costs or change orders, we may be able to use ARPA funds. But there's some language that we're looking for clarification on around using ARPA to offset bond payments and that kind of thing versus using ARPA for construction. There does seem to be a line between paying financing costs and paying construction costs. And I would just reiterate that we haven't been working on this in a vacuum. We've been in constant communication. Primarily, Kate has been in constant communication with the departments that are proposing these and making sure that, you know, what's being recommended is what they actually need and can use. So,
Well, the only other thing I'd add to it then is that even with Jackson Street out of the way, we still face quite an uphill battle in our sewer and stormwater separation projects throughout the city, and there'll be ample opportunities for more coming along real quick.
Councilor McGivern?
Thank you, Councilor Bartley. And, you know, the more we can put, you know, resources into sewer separation, the more we have an impact on keeping our sewer rates low, or at least, maybe I shouldn't say low, but, you know, lower. And I understand the dilemma with the Jackson Street, because it has been bonded and we actually have good rates. But I believe the Springdale Pond is the next project on the books. And I'm not too sure if it's shovel ready, but wouldn't it make sense to head some money towards the next project? After that, I'm not sure if they're going to call, but there's one up in Smiths Ferry that's causing problems, and the mandate's not going away. And you know, we how far can we go with the sewer rate if we don't start looking for federal assistance, which is what we've been asking for all along? Mm-hmm. So I would just ask for consideration to, after whatever the next project is after Jackson Street.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we accept the recommendation of CAC for the $2 million.
I'll second that.
We've been discussing this to death, so I'll just call a vote on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, 2 million. Okay, I missed one. Actually, I missed two, but I missed one on purpose. VOC, emergency stabilization for domestic violence. I'm going to make a motion to accept the recommendation of OCD and CAC.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept the recommendation. On discussion. Hearing none on the motion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Oh,
Just for the public, should we let them know it's a 0?
0. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike. Yeah, thank you. To zero that out. Yeah, that's the recommendation. Okay, shot spotters, tasers. I skipped 2 there for I'm sorry, for us. DPW Springdale Pond sewer separation, Jackson Street area sewer separation.
I make a motion to go along with the CAC and zero those out.
I'm going to second that. On that motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, those are zeroed. All right, the only one left on this page is a shot spotter. Wow, I'll say that 10 times fast. I mean, I'm of the opinion that we ought to fund it, but That's me. But
How do, I agree. The only concern is how do we look down the road 3 years if there's no funding for it?
you're right.
You got to pay the 99,000 every.
Well, otherwise you got a white elephant on your hands.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a disaster. So, I mean,
Mr. Chairman,
Councilor Graney,
is it contractual every year? I mean, we can renew the contract for 2-3 years, and if we don't have the funding for it, then we can't renew it for the 4th year. I mean, if it's a contractual thing, we can fund it temporarily. If it's going to improve the safety in the city, absolutely, I'm in favor of it.
well, that's probably the argument. So the argument's going to have to be whether the thing works, and it seems to work in Springfield. I mean, they're obviously, 4 times the size of Holyoke, so or more, and I mean area-wise, and so it seems to work there. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's been a lot of shootings lately. Some AK-47s to boot. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the budget request of $336 for the shots, spotters, and tasers. No second? That fails. Okay. Another one? You got between 0 and 336. Going once.
Can we,
Going twice. Well, we can
Can we-
come back to this. Counselor LeBron Martinez, you gotta.
yeah, I think this is a good, situation that we should support it maybe for the cost that it costs us to do it yearly only. Was it 99,000?
Or is that your motion? Is that your motion?
Is that? I like to, I like to propose the
All
99,000,
right,
but it costs us
I'll second that.
Yeah, yep.
So motion's made and seconded to approve this line item at 99,000 based on the representation that was their understanding of a one-year lease agreement. Counselor Murphy.
I'm not certain, but I don't think the 99 covers the capital expense up front. I think there's a capital expense and then there's a 99,000. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty certain.
Alicia then Kate. Alicia then Kate, go ahead.
So I found the budget, and it looks to me like they are requesting contract services of 198,000. So they had 3 line items on their budget. One was for the premium pay. One is for equipment of 138,000, which I would assume is the tasers. And then the last item is 198,000 for contract services. So I think Councilor Murphy is correct, and they would be looking for 198,000 to get this going.
Okay, I'll make the
does that sound
motion
right
that
to
we
you?
approve it for 198,000.
Budget pages.
Sorry, I don't think that number is right for tasers because my notes say 1,200 per taser, 30, so the 36,000 that's in there. My understanding, but I don't have the budget in front of me, but 198 is way too much for tasers based on what they told us in the meeting.
No, 198 for shot spotter.
Shot spotter.
But didn't you also say there was an equipment?
There's
Sorry,
an equipment line item for 138.
I think that's too high. I think 36,000 was the tasers.
Yeah,
I know it's
Kate's right.
1,200 a piece. Anyways, it sounds like clarification might be needed further on this, but I thought it was 100,000 per year for the shot spotters and 36,000 for the tasers.
Oh, okay, so if it then it's $300,000 would be for 3-year commitment then, is what it sounds like.
That was my understanding, but if Alicia's looking at a budget that differs from my information, I'd be a little hesitant to.
The proposal in front of me. Shot spotter, this is the police department proposal. Shot spotter is 198,000 for 2 years for 2 square miles.
2 square miles?
2 square miles.
40 tasers plus the necessary equipment for the tasers is 138,000, and then the premium pay. So shot spotter, 198,000 is 2 years for 2 square miles.
2 square miles. That doesn't sound too useful.
Could you, could, Mayor Dave?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Two
Council
square
Sullivan. Go
miles.
ahead.
Alicia, premium pay for the tasers?
No, the shot spotter proposal is for 198,000. 40 tasers plus equipment is 138,000, and premium pay was for the 142. You already did the premium pay.
Right.
They put all of these items in
I just-
one proposal.
Yep,
So
I
we
just wanted to- yeah.
pieced it out for you.
All right.
So premium pay is now off the table. You zero funded that.
Yeah.
The 198 is for shot spotters and 138 is for tasers. That's according to their proposal. It's typed out.
Mr. Chairman.
Council Bacon?
Since the shot spotter is only for 2 square miles, I don't see it as being effective for the city,
I think the city's what, 22 square miles?
at least.
I think that's what it is, right?
Well, 2 square miles could be a good area.
Yeah.
It's 26 square miles.
20,
2
okay.
by 2 by 2.
I mean, they're probably they're probably not using shot spotter out in, West Cherry Street, probably.
Well, here's the thing.
If they did, that wouldn't be good either.
Dealing with
would it?
drive-by shootings,
Think about it.
they're all over the place.
Yeah. Well, 518 Homestead.
You want to wait to get more clarification on this one? We come back to it?
Well, let's come back to it. Let's try to get through what we can here. All right, next page, page 7. We're almost there. Council Murphy, sorry. No, we didn't. We're going to table that for now. We're going to punt. All right. Okay, page 7. Let's just rifle right down this page, if we may. Alicia, Kate.
This is actually a pretty easy page to work from. One of the things with ARPA that the city is required to do is to demonstrate that it is supporting families and households in qualified census tracts, which is actually a smaller footprint than our CDBG census tracts. And so that's why you see the only recommendation at this point, and again, I say at this point with the guidance that we've received to date, is funding the water line replacement at Hamden, East White, Portland, and Magnolia Streets. OCD staff felt like we felt like we could make a justification that that's an eligible water infrastructure improvement because it's also servicing the hospital. I think Kate might have some additional information based on her conversations with Dave Conti.
The only thing is to say that that was their priority as well. So we pretty much aligned with what their first choice was in terms of things getting funded, with an eye towards perhaps rolling out more of the projects as more ARPA funds come in. But we just closely hewed to their prioritization list on this, where that almost $5 million is allocated.
All right.
And I believe there's also a case with these where projects are either already funded or well underway.
Thank you. Council Sullivan?
Yep. So here we go with the 800-pound gorilla in the room. This is absolutely one of the most important infrastructure projects we could have in front of us right now. And we've already allocated so much money to everything else. I doubt we have much left, but we're talking about fire protection. We're talking about water quality. We're talking about a section of the system, the water system in Holyoke, that is in worse shape than what we just saw on Fairfield Ave. All right? We're looking at something that will reduce our need for as much of a rate increase. That rate increase affects everybody throughout the entire community, all the residents, all of the businesses. And we're looking at work now. If we don't start this work now, if we don't fund it now, we're not going to get the same prices a year from now or in the second round of funding as you can by locking in the contractors at this point. So, and this is one of the most serious infrastructure problems we have in the city right now. These are all cast iron pipes, all right? all well over 100 years old, right? And something's got to give elsewhere in this budget to start working on this. Otherwise, what we're looking at is this is what is going to impact substantially our water rates going forward and what we have to do. You can't build any of these new houses we want. You can't support new businesses if you can't even supply them water. So everything we're doing with, be it Habitat for Humanity and all of the rest, one new house here, one new duplex there, 2 new ones over here, none of that's possible if we don't have water and sewer. And here we are at the bottom of the list with the most important thing, and I'm willing to guess right now we have no money left.
No, I don't know, we'll see.
Some money.
We'll see.
Yep.
Okay, well, I think we need to start making motions. So I'll make the motion that for all of these, we approve the OCD recommendation. So we zero water line on Nonotuck, we zero West Holyoke storage tank, we zero Whiting Reservoir dam improvements, we zero HG&E pole readiness, etc., and we zero, although I hate doing that, the One Holyoke CDC, etc., for the Wi-Fi access, although I hope we can revisit that one. So,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question before the vote?
yeah, I didn't even get a second there, so.
A second.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks. I just want, through the chair to Alicia, would the dam improvements be qualified under the rules of the funding? I understand you said some couldn't because of where they're located.
So that's one of the ones that we're trying to do some additional research on because it isn't located in a qualified census tract. However, there's a really good argument to be made that it would have significant economic development impacts on the city. And so we would need to, do some more research on that one. If we're going strictly by geographic location, it's likely not. But if we try to make a case, build a case with the Treasury Department that, without these improvements, a dam failure would be catastrophic around transportation and economic development, then we may be able to. But at this point in time, we weren't able to say yes, definitive. And with the goal of moving as much money out as we can right off the bat, we made that as a secondary possibility and funded the one above it.
Thank you.
Counselor Sullivan?
And Kate's got a
hold on.
tool for you at the bottom.
Yeah, go, Alicia and Kate, can you just hold on one second? Counselor Sullivan has a question. Hold on a second, Counselor Sullivan.
No, I just wanted to make one last statement, as long as you're on the dam project, is also we can delay that off by just, and already we do this, we drain the water down, and the reservoir's been maintained the last couple of years at a lower level. So it's nothing on the list is as significant as the Portland, Magnolia, East Dwight, and especially with the hospital right there.
Alicia, I cut you off. Go, Alicia and Kate, go ahead. You wanted to make a further comment following up on?
Well, I was just going to say that Kate's got a running total for us. And
Oh, it's my favorite part. Let's go. Oh. Okay, ARPA
That should be
available.
the,
ARPA available 2.6. There you go.
Mr. Chairman?
Counselor, well, hold on, Counselor Murphy.
Yep, no problem.
Kate, did you want to just clarify what this says for the public?
yeah, the top line right here is how much you have allocated so far, and this is the remainder based on that 14.947 million in the first tranche.
Okay. Counselor Murphy.
And I'm wondering if you would be willing to allow Mr. Conti, who is here, to be able to talk about what the impact on the ratepayers for the water department would be if the second proposal for Portland and Magnolia were approved. if that's possible.
You want,
I would make a motion to allow the manager to
Was he here?
suspend the rules.
Yeah.
oh,
I'll second that.
absolutely, yeah, oh, yeah, sure.
I'll second that.
All in favor, suspend the rules, allow Mr. Conti to speak? on the
Aye.
motion?
Aye.
Aye.
He's behind us.
Oh, geez, this is a system we have, okay. Welcome, Dave, go ahead.
Did you have any questions for me with regards to the projects?
Yeah. I got a question.
Counselor Tallman.
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for coming down. On a question on that, I know it's an important water line replacement on that area, Hamden, East to White, and up by the hospital. There's only so much funding that I think we have left, but any kind of funding that we can give to that project will help try to keep our rates in check. I don't know if we'll be able to do the full 4.7 million, but whatever we do fund, will that make an impact on possibly keeping the rates, water rates in check in future years?
Yes, that's the intention of applying for the ARP, is that these projects are moving forward regardless. And there is projected rate increases to fund these projects. And any of these funds that we receive to offset these costs would be used to reduce those rate increases. So yes, that's to your question.
Thank you.
Well, we'll go with Counselor Sullivan and Counselor Murphy.
I'm done.
You all set? Counselor Murphy.
So, Dave, so with the 4.794, can you give us an idea what percentage increase that would be in rates? And if it's at all possible, what the average water consumer might expect an annual increase? And I know that's asking you a lot here.
We projected that if we received funding for the Phase 2B project for $4.8 million, it would help to reduce the rates by 3 cents, or roughly just under 7%.
And
How would that impact an average user? An average user uses 22,000, an average household user uses 22,500 gallons of water per quarter. That's 90,000 gallons a year. That would represent a $27 savings based on the current rates if they went up from 47 cents to 50 cents,
okay,
just for that one particular project.
okay. I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any further questions from Counselor McGivern has his hand up. This is for addressing Mr. Conti, Joe.
Thank you, Councilor Bartley. Yes, through the chair to Mr. Conti. David, on the Whiting Street Dam, the spillway, you gave us a great run-through about what that means and the importance of doing that. I was just curious, I'm all in favor, I know we have to do it, but I'm just curious as to the Whiting Street Reservoir Committee is studying a number of things to passive type activities to do around the Whiting Street Reservoir and around that side of the mountain. If we don't do the spillway soon, will some of their, I know you're familiar with their recommendations, come to fruition? Or if we have to lower the reservoir anymore, will that cause problems with their proposals?
Well, we're currently lowering the impound now because of concerns with regards to overtoppling of the dam and the failure of the dam. Now, that's something that's going to continue until this project, the improvements to the spillway take place. We're projecting the spillway to be designed in 2022 and to be bid sometime in later 2022 with construction starting in 2023. So right now we're in the regulatory process of seeking or obtaining all the necessary permits, Army Corps of Engineers, National Heritage. That process is a slow process, but we have procedures in place to provide for the safety of the residents and 91 in the event of large storm period. So these precautions will continue up until the spillway is completed. So as far as the impact to the committee's recommendations, I don't think that the project is going to in any way impact what their recommendations are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay. Well, let's see. Getting back to the main event here, we have. I think if Kate wants to put that summary on there for us, looks like we probably, unless we want to go back and cut other things, which we can do. Looks like we probably can't fully fund this on this round. Mr. Connie, you're still with us? Sorry, I got my back to you, but this is our new normal. I can't stand it, but hopefully it'll change. Mr. Connie, if we funded a portion of this, say, 1.5 or 2 million, does that get us through a little bit of the project, and then perhaps in the next round we can finance the balance, or what's your position?
Well, this project is actually just starting to be designed as we speak. And this project is scheduled to go out to bid in January of 2022, which we anticipate construction starting in the summer of 2022. Now, there are other phase projects that are going to be forthcoming. You have the 3A and the 3B. 3A is going to be designed in 2022 with bidding in 2023, and possibly 3B in 2024. So there are going to be other projects. We're just not at that point yet. We're handling these projects individually and in phases. So again, the 2B we felt was one of the more critical of all the programs because of the impact to areas that have mixed use and critical to the secondary source for the hospital and adjoining medical facilities.
Unfortunately, Mr. Conti, if we do pass these, this means you can't retire until about 2028. I mean, so that's the downer for you, my friend. As I have my back to you the whole time, I can't stand this, Jeff. This has got to be changed. We have the technology to move these screens the other way, don't we? Can we do that? Can we get extension cord? Counselor Sullivan.
Yeah, Mr. Conti, just so everybody gets a grasp of the entire picture going forward to the 3A, I believe, and 3B projects. The other ones are still off. Just a ballpark number on each of those. Doesn't have to be exact, but 4 point whatever.
Well, those are going to be in excess of $3 million also, those projects. Again,
a piece, right?
Each.
Yes. So in addition to this $5 million in front of us, we're looking at easily another $6 or $7 million on top of it.
That's correct. That's correct.
All right, that's just what I want to get out there.
All right. So I'm going to go. I'm sorry, Council Tallman.
Yeah, I think we're going to try to fund something with this project, but I think we should try. I think we got one more page to finish up, and then maybe come back to it, because I think we got a couple small ones coming up.
Well,
we already did the 1.7, but there's a 1.3 and there's 45,000 on the last page, so we can get a running number and see what we got left after those votes.
Okay. Well, we'll hold off on. Did you want to vote? Why don't we at least vote on Waterworks water line replacement, which is Nonotuck, etc., and then the Waterworks West Holyoke storage tank, and Waterworks Whiting Street Reservoir dam improvements. Why don't we at least vote on those three?
We already did.
I thought we did.
Oh, did we? Oh, good.
We did them all, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm awake.
I think we did them all.
Okay,
yeah.
so we zeroed those out, and we zeroed out HG&E.
Yep.
Okay, all right. So the only thing left on this page is the Portland Magnolia. Okay, all right. So now you want to go to the last page, which is page 8, and we've already approved the city auditor's office, and so now we're at admin 7.1. So Alicia, I guess we're at admin 7.1 for OCD, if you would.
So, be happy to. I do want to point out, if Kate could just scroll down for 1 second, scroll down to the potential CARES Act funding. We've been working with Mayor Murphy to provide funding to these other activities that had applied for ARPA. We identified CARES Act funding that's going to be used for these items. So these projects: community routes, Holyoke Veterans Office transportation, the public library laptop lending and outdoor Wi-Fi hotspots, a box truck for mobile food distribution and food distribution through Nueva Esperanza. Those will be funded not through ARPA, but through the CARES Act. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that, just in terms of stretching the dollars.
Okay, at what level are they being funded?
Just to clarify, they have been pre-approved as being eligible for CARES Act funding, but they have not officially been funded by CARES Act funding yet.
No, roger that, but I mean, so we say we're funding them, but do we have an approximate level at which we're funding them?
Mayor Murphy?
It would be year one only.
Basically, we're waiting to get the balance on the CARES Act, so we know how much is still available, then we'll kind of go through it. But, I mean, I know as of last week, that was still being reviewed, so.
Okay.
I didn't want to make it until I have that.
The boundaries of the CARES Act funding are different, so it would be year one only, none of the multi-year asks. It would just be to get them through this first year, because the CARES Act funding expires after that.
Okay, CARES Act.
Okay, so I guess what I'll do for the pursuing CARES Act funding to cover, we'll just, I'll make a motion to accept the CAC recommendation for each of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these, which is 0 for each one, pending, further explanation, I guess.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded to accept the CAC recommendation for the aforementioned. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, so those 5 are zeroed out. Okay, that takes care of those 5.
Okay, and if we could just scroll up once we get those zeros in. And so in the administrative line item of 7.1, we have 2 proposals. One is from the Office for Community Development, making a total request of $1.3 million to cover the administrative and planning costs for the entirety of the ARPA funds, the 5 years. And the second is the city clerk office is requesting a records management and digitization project of $45,000. And both, obviously OCD, we need to fund the admin and planning so that this work can get done. And we're recommending funding the city clerk because the city needs to start somewhere with its records management, and COVID has certainly shown that remote work and remote record access is critical. So we would recommend those funding levels for those 2 admin activities.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that we fund the clerk's office. I guess I'll just throw out to the committee. Do you want to fund all 5 years for OCD now? Or I mean, actually, I shouldn't have said that. Alicia, do we have to fund all 5 years now, or can you fund like 3 years now and 2 years next year?
I would recommend, in terms of moving forward, I would recommend that the entire admin and planning budget be set aside to ensure that we have continuity of staff and servicing.
Okay, but so the answer to my question is no, is that we don't have to, so we're not committed to doing that. We're not compelled to do it, but you recommend that we do it based upon your argument. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm always saying that if you want to get this as much as you can for the waterworks, then you might want to cut back on the admin part for the last 2 years. Maybe that'll give you some wiggle room, but that's my thought. Councilor Sullivan.
Well, my comment on that would be that if we funded 2 full years of it, right? And then next year we funded the other 3, we'd be all set. I mean, that would take care of it. Why the urgency to have the whole 5 years established now? I mean, with 2 years and then just 1 year, 1 year from now, get the other 3 in. There's plenty of cushion in between.
You could fund it like that. I think for ensuring staff continuity, folks knowing that their position is funded for a period of time, it would be helpful to have it funded in its entirety. I can understand the position of funding 2 years and then 3 years. Certainly, if you have a future administration that opts not to fund it, the program will not exist. The only option for, unless the city wants to make a municipal allocation to fund the positions and the expenses associated with it, without the ARPA funding earmarked for admin and planning, the work would not get done. So I tend to be conservative around this. I want to ensure that the position is funded and the expenses are covered for 5 years, and that's where that ask came in.
Councilor Bacon.
I totally respect the department head's approach in terms of it being common sense and wanting to ensure the longevity for the people in the roles. Personally, I don't feel that's a big risk because we know the money's coming next year and we know the amount of it. And I really think the argument for the infrastructure needs is so compelling. I mean, the city, I get calls every week about sunken sewer covers and broken things throughout the city. And I just think we're going a bit astray of focusing on the biggest bang for the buck with the infrastructure, which to me is the most compelling need we have. I think it's very unfortunate this water stuff's like at the end of the show, if you will, because I think it's one of the most compelling needs in the city. So, you know, I would encourage the committee to go and look back before you wrap this up tonight and find every nickel, dime, and dollar you can to put into the infrastructure, whether it's that pond sewer separation fund or the water company. I mean, these are things that are going to have a 20-year life for the city. And this is the only time we're ever going to get this money, this year and next year. And then we're back to right where we've been for the last 10 years, looking at the CSOs and looking at the sinkholes. So I really urge, well, and I'm speaking to the committee, but I'm also asking Mayor Murphy, because at the end of the day, it'll be his call.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just-
Council Sullivan.
Yeah, and it's not, with all due respect, it's not a 20-year thing. This is the replacement on some of these, that's a 100-year commitment. It's stuff that people will be enjoying and taking advantage of well beyond our time and the next generation and the generation after that.
Good point.
All right, let's see here, you want to make a motion? Well, I'll make the motion, we approve the $45,000 recommendation for records management and digitalization.
I'll second that.
Motion made and second to approve the recommendation for $45,000. Under discussion? Hearing none. On the motion, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I'd make a recommendation for $426,400 for administration and planning.
I will second that. Under discussion, anyone? Hearing none. On the motion for 2 years of OCD admin and planning funding at $426,400, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Councilor Graney, you want to vote?
I said aye.
Oh, I didn't hear you. Okay, I take it as I heard four ayes on that. So I heard 4 ayes, so that passes. Okay, we got to get down to the bottom here for Gary Rome Hyundai EV charger infrastructure.
Make a motion to go along with the OCD and CAC as zero that out.
Second.
Motion made and second to zero that out. Not because we have to, well, not because we want to, because we have to. On the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, well, let's see what the number is. Is that the number, Kate?
Yeah, sorry, my mute button's sticky. It's, yeah, the 2 million, right, 2,146,297 is what you have left.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
We have a couple.
Counselor Graney.
just quickly, to Mayor Murphy, if I could, through the chair, do we need the 516 grand to hold in escrow, or can we use some of that money for the infrastructure?
I think I will take your recommendations. I would just tell you to do what you think at this point, and as it gets, obviously I'm gonna have 2 more weeks that I'm gonna be looking at things, and see what's going on with the virus and where we're looking there, and if there's any additional information from the federal government in terms of potential funding, if there is an additional, health crisis. But, you know, based on everything I've heard from them, if there's another problem, they're gonna come up with more money to send us. But I don't obviously know that, but that's what I've been hearing, so.
All right. Well, we did not take a vote on the water line. We did not take a vote on the shot spotter.
that's right, a shot spot, I think.
And I think everything else we hit one way or the other with a funding recommendation or a zero. I mean, the big ticket items, municipal building improvements of 4 million. I mean, perhaps there's some flexibility there. The small business and HCT industry grants at 1.2 million, perhaps there's flexibility there. I don't know.
Got it?
Counselor Tallman.
Yeah, I just on that shot spotter, I know it's a great thing, and maybe we can look at it in the future, but it doesn't seem like we get the bang for the buck as we thought we would. So I make a motion to, as of now, to zero that out and wait for more information from the Office of Community Development.
Yeah, I'll second that for now. I think we have to do that. On discussion, hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we zeroed out that one, which is depressing, but we have to face the mirror. Okay, so if I may, I wouldn't want us to put baby in the corner here for the whole 2.145 million. But you gentlemen, what's your pleasure? Lady and gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
I'd have one more question for the,
Counselor Sullivan has a question.
yeah. So, Mr. Conti, putting 2 million now towards this project, right? And Alicia, if you could help with this also, that would establish us as having put this one under the ARP funding, and we could get started on it with the idea of putting more ARP money to it in the next round. Would that satisfy both the water department and our requirements, Alicia, with the federal project guidelines?
I'll let Dave go first, but I want to touch on the procurement aspect of that.
Okay,
Is Mr. Connie here?
yeah.
Oh, Mr. Connie, please.
I think any funds the department receives for these particular projects would be well received and would be beneficial in minimizing rate increases necessary to fund these projects moving forward. It's very important to the commission that Hoyoke keeps its water rates affordable, and these funds used to support these projects or a project or in part a project would be well received.
So, having said that, I would propose putting $2 million towards the,
She wants to say something.
Oh, yeah.
all right.
Yeah, Alicia, go ahead.
So I think one of the concerns that we would have is typically we don't go out to bid until the project is fully funded. So the question for the waterworks would be, where would the remaining funds come from? And are they immediately available to be matched to whatever is allocated from ARPA?
Funding for the project has already been authorized by the city council.
So it's already in the works. Already in the bond.
So,
It might not.
So what does that mean?
We're just currently doing bond anticipation notes.
Alicia, does that answer your question?
Does that mean it's paid for?
It does, thanks.
Okay.
Can we still send money to that?
Does
even
that
though it's
create a
already-
problem?
Can we, so the question Council Thomas raises, even though we've approved bonding for it, can we utilize ARPA funds? So I don't know how to phrase it, supplement it, or can we do that? Alicia?
It would seem to me that that could be done because a portion of the project costs are coming from the city through a bond, and a portion of the project costs would be coming through ARPA. And we would ensure that the 2 million or whatever you allocate through ARPA is used towards construction costs as opposed to financing. So I don't think a mixed financing project is of concern. I think it's the payment of the bond payments or payment of financing costs that raise some questions. But it should be that a mixed finance ARPA project where some of it's municipal bonding, some of it's ARPA should be fine. And obviously before we do any of this, we would just double check.
So So to be perfectly clear on it, if in the next round we approved more money for this and we have not yet bonded for it or have any bond payments due, we would be able to use that entire amount.
That question remains to be seen, Counselor, because by the time the next ARPA round comes around, the Waterworks and Mr. Conti would have already been out to bid. And so adding additional funds can sometimes trigger additional compliance requirements. And so if a project is already fully funded and you want to offset one funding source with additional ARPA funds, I think that could be problematic. We'd have to check. So I wouldn't say that that's absolutely fine. We would need to check on that situation as well. Because then you're substituting one for another. Once the project's already been out to bid and is underway.
Okay, then I would only have one more question. Indulge me. David, given that, how long would it take to start the 3A project?
I would anticipate the 3A project will be in the design stages in the summer.
Héctor, ¿tú sabes que tú tenías que ya me pasé la cita para lo de...
Go ahead, Dave.
Design stages of summer, fall of 2022, with bidding in January of 2023 for the 3A.
That'd be the, there's 4 of these projects altogether. It's not on here.
Oh,
I'm just looking down the road.
yeah, right.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So, just to clarify,
Counselor Bacon?
so there's nothing to stop us from funding this project. And the problem with Jackson is that it's too far down the road. So this is just a matter of finding the money in these spreadsheets and reallocating it, which at the end of the day, Mayor Murphy will do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Counselor Graney?
Yeah, on 1.74 million for the municipal building improvements. Do we need the 4 million, or can we chop some of that off?
Well, that's what, I think that's a rhetorical question, so I think Counselor Murphy's gonna have to look into that. I raised that a bit ago, so, you know, you have to look at the big ticket items to see if there's flexibility. So the 4 million is one of them, but man, I mean, if you're gonna, I mean, we can't use CDBG for city buildings, so,
The
I
other-
mean,
The other is Office for Community Development.
you're talking, as Mr. Conti said, this is, you know, I know it's a 7%, I mean, but you're talking, I mean, it's the ratepayers. I mean, listen, I don't like paying it myself, but I mean, at least that's, can be spread out over all the ratepayers for the 3A to 3B. Whereas the city buildings, I mean, good luck trying to spread that out to the,
We have to do the
I
building.
mean, for property taxes. Yeah, good luck with that vote. So that's,
Oh, what do we got left? Can we put the,
that. Oh, that's it. Well,
no.
we just have the one vote left for,
can we put
many
the,
left?
White Street, Portland, Magnolia.
the balance? Where's
Yeah,
that, the
the
balance?
Well, the balance is 2.14.
Well,
You want to do that?
Is that what it was?
I'd love
Or
to
you
do
want
it,
to
but
do more? I have to do more, but you got somewhere else, right?
Wait,
my thought was to get the 2 million in there. That would leave the 174,000 for the, it's not the 500 that the mayor was looking for a buffer, but it's something in there for reserve.
2 million one.
Well, I mean, the mayor's ultimately going to make the decision, right? So why don't you, somebody just make a motion on this, whether it's 1.8 or 1.4 or 2.1. It's got to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve 2 million for the water line replacement.
I'll second that.
Made and seconded for $2 million on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, so if we put 2 million in there, survey says,
Yeah, balance of 140.
that's my favorite part. Look at that. Under budget, as always. We always do a great job. Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you to Kate and to Alicia. Thank you to Jeff for being with us. Thank you to the councilors who hung in there. Thank you to the committee, and also a great thanks to the CAC for all of their hard work, which we really relied upon. Okay?
We're gonna set up the next, make a
you.
motion to set the next meeting?
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
Item 3?
So the motion is right now for
Schedule.
item 2.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't we take an
Proposals.
overall vote? I guess the motion would be to forward the recommendations to full city council.
Motion to approve our recommendations to the full city council.
Motion made and second to forward our recommendations to full city council. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda item 3, I always have as a placeholder for another meeting, but I know we're gonna have public hearings, Jeff, true? I know we have public hearings, potential public hearings in the jacket, I know we do. I mean, it's up to the committee. I happen to like Mondays, but I'm not the only person here, so you wanna try, I don't know, you wanna try, why don't we look at Monday, September 27th? That's past the election, gives a little wiggle room, right?
Yep.
All right,
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Monday,
Monday.
September 27th, and what time do you, I mean, I like the 6 o'clock, but again, I'm just one person.
6, fine with me.
6 o'clock,
6 is
okay?
fine, yep.
Yep.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna shoot for Monday, September 27th at 6 bells, okay? And I'll take one more motion.
Motion adjourned.
Motion made and second to adjourn, not debatable, on the motion, all in favor? Aye, we are
Aye.
adjourned, thank you.
Good night, Gladys.
Good night, everyone.